Hey everyone, and welcome to another video, and today the long-awaited QIYANA guide is rising to the surface. This has been a 2-month long project, a very long time for a guide, I know that, but QIYANA, look, in my experience, it's been the hardest champion I've ever played, and so it required a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of effort. So without further ado, let's dive straight in here. There's a lot to cover, right? There's a lot to cover, so, if you need to take a nap as you're going through it, you might doze off halfway through. That's completely understandable. If you need to skip to certain sections, that's also completely understandable. Here it is. Hopefully I've made a guide that will kind of stand the test of time. I've really tried to distill the fundamental aspects of the champion into this guide. Now let's kick it off with who is this guide for, right? It's for beginners, people who want to learn QIYANA, who maybe were too intimidated, they don't really know where to start, they're overwhelmed. To be honest, this was kind of me as I was approaching learning QIYANA. This is also for the people that already play QIYANA, who are kind of already on their journey or somewhat experts on the champion and kind of want to look for differing ways to up their game or get a different perspective on the champion. Or it's for league tryhards like myself looking to expand their knowledge of QIYANA to better deal with it, right? To get a better understanding of what the champion does, why they're dying at level 3 every single game or level 6 every single game to that QIYANA, which for me, this has actually been a super eye-opening experience. And one thing before we go any further here, guys, if you have played any of the following champions, we've got Fizz, Echo, Talon, etc. If you've played any of these champions and gotten to a decent level of champion mastery with any one of them, you are going to have a significant advantage when picking up this champion. If you are coming from a control mage background or from another role, QIYANA is going to be very overwhelming. Okay, I'm just throwing that out. It is going to be overwhelming. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my QIYANA journey to give you guys a little bit of context of what it was like to learn QIYANA over the past 100 games, over the past 2 months. So basically, I approached this as if I was learning QIYANA from scratch. Yes, I had kind of dabbled in QIYANA in the past, and I knew a little bit about the champion, but this was, taking things to a whole new level. And I'm still very much on my QIYANA journey. I haven't ended my journey just because, I've been playing it for 2 months. I don't really consider myself a master whatsoever. I'm still very much a student of QIYANA and learning more about the intricacies and the ways to push limits with this champion. It's a very complex champion. And now, not everyone has this sort of time commitment, sinking 2 months into a champion. It's hard to do. So my thought process when making this guide was I want to speed up this process for you guys as much as humanly possible. So I made trillions of mistakes. I've taken notes on every single one of them, and I tried to distill all of the key learnings so you don't have to go through as much pain as I did. It's still going to be painful, but it's not going to be as painful. And just to be completely transparent with you guys, I'm not really that good at QIYANA. I believe I'm only like a D1 low master QIYANA player. I'm not that good. This is probably the first guide I've made where I'm genuinely not challenger level at this champion. All my other guides, whether it was when I played, Fizz and Victor, blah, 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 Twist of Fate, I am a challenger player on those champions. But QIYANA, I'm just not there yet. I need more time. I need another 50 to 80 games, I reckon, to get to that next level. I'm, kind of plateaued right now with D1 low master. I'm only currently sitting around like a 45% win rate in Diamond. But note that I do blind pick QIYANA on that account no matter what. Full AD, blind pick, the worst comps possible. And I did actually learn QIYANA on that account, and it was at like a 30% win rate when I first started. So I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made. But just again, I just want to be completely transparent with you guys. I am not a challenger QIYANA, and I kind of know what gap I need to bridge in order to get there. It's a lot of execution stuff and just consistency. But yeah, I wanted to be completely transparent with you guys. So moving on, QIYANA mistakes, guys. QIYANA is a very unforgiving champion, right? You're going to make thousands of mistakes. You're going to lose a lot of games. And I'm not even exaggerating. You are literally going to make hundreds and thousands of mistakes along this journey. Now, in order to speed up the learning process, we must be okay with limit testing, having these painful experiences. And the more limits we test, the faster the learning process will be. But we must know what to make of a given mistake, right? There's a lot of different mistakes you can make. You got to be able to realize what the mistake is and what can we take away from it? Now, in my opinion, a mistake on QIYANA only ever falls into one of two categories, given that you are playing with high intensity, right? It's either a failure to know the limits, right, of the champion, like you just don't know, you're missing knowledge, you don't really know how to approach something, or it's simply misexecution and micro. And my goal within this guide is to have as little of these, or at least you kind of know what was going wrong, and it's purely an execution and micro problem, which is kind of where I'm at, you know, like I kind of know what I need to do, I know exactly how to approach the fight, but I just misexecute, which is a good problem to have. It's not really that tilting. When you're beginning QIYANA, you can have all of these, you know, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're not going to know how to approach it, why that's the case. It's all going to be these failure to know limits and just straight up knowledge problems. And my goal is to really speed up that process. Now, I want to kick it off with the mechanical micro aspect of QIYANA, right? So for now, we're going to hone in on the execution aspect of QIYANA. I'm going to list out the core combos for QIYANA in order of when you should learn them and when you should focus on them. And then later on, I'm going to give you a few drills so that you can actually learn them effectively. And I'll be honest with you guys, I fucking wish that I had this when I first learned QIYANA. I was so overwhelmed. I was so lost. I didn't know how basic trading patterns work, what the main all-in combos were. Like every piece of content that I watched, I came out looking like that's not how my games look like. My trades don't look like this. Why is that the case? So I really wanted to give you guys a little bit of structure here. And learning these combos both in-game and in the practice tool will naturally increase your tethering proficiency, also due to the nature of the kit. And this is how the order of it should go. You're going to learn the basic trading combos, then we're going to go to the all-in combos, then we're going to touch on the additional micro details, and then we're going to go into the drills and stuff like that. And just for reference, for the sake of clarification, mechanical and micro errors include, but not limited to, incorrect combos, missed auto attacks, poor tethering, taking too much damage in lane, and missed skill shots, you know, the classic, right? So let's kick it off with actually a few important QIYANA details before we get into the clip specifically. There's a lot of little knowledge things you kind of need to be aware of before it all clicks together. Some of these are going to be obvious, but again, I'm catering for the beginners and the not so beginner QIYANA player. The first one that you should probably know is that the E is actually a set distance, whereas the Prowler's Claw, you're actually directly behind the champion. That will help. Just like when you're doing combos, it will kind of make sense why you do a combo a certain way. It might not make sense now, but as you get into it, it will make sense. When casting Q and E, it will automatically lock onto that target. Very important to understand why we really like the QWEQ combo. Grass Q gives 20% bonus movement speed, very good for closing the gap, catching people off guard and escaping and things like that, and dodging skill shots, obviously. You can take another element within Grass Q to hide your next element. Again, we're going to show plenty of examples of this, don't you worry. R actually does a max HP damage, which for me, I did not know this before I played QIYANA. I thought, QIYANA can't deal with tanks, but once you get Cyrildas and you've got your third item, and you can actually deal with a lot of these tankier members because of your R doing max HP damage. Just something to keep in mind. Earth Q bonus damage applies to targets below 50% HP, pretty stock standard. And the last little thing here, which don't worry, we're going to show plenty of clips of this, is the speed of the combos that you do matter a lot. It can literally dictate whether you can kill someone or you can't. So your proficiency with the speed of a combo is something that we really need to address within this guide. So let's kick it off with the basic trading combos. All right, diving into the basic trading combos. The first one here is the simple Grass Q poke. Relatively straightforward, nothing too fancy here. Generally, your bread and butter, you want to be poking as much as possible as you can in a safe fashion with that Grass Q. This is what's going to provide you that safety. They can't really just engage on you randomly. Grass Q is your bread and butter poke ability. Then we have the QWQ. Now, the QWQ poke combo is an interesting one. It's one that you utilize a lot when the enemy is like tethering you, or you don't want to commit too deep in the lane, or you can't take an extended trade. A lot of the time you will do it when like the wave's in an awkward position like this, where you can't just E in randomly, or maybe you don't have necessary information from the jungler. It's also very good into these higher range matchups in a second, like Lissandra here, where you don't want to fully commit here. Again, too close to the tower, so I'm just going to go for a QWQ non-committal poke here. Something to keep in mind is that you want to ideally have two differing elements, so you proc the passive twice rather than just one. So I would want to ideally avoid Earth into Earth, again, you're just going to do way less damage. So that way I'm able to proc the passive twice. Now, this is another classic one. E through a minion to close the gap if they're tethering you effectively into QWQ. Again, pretty stock standard. Good, especially when, you know, they're respecting you. You can't just really walk up linearly, otherwise you're going to get destroyed. It's a really good way of kind of mixing up the trading patterns here. So again, that's a pretty stock standard one there. Now, this is a really good one to do into lower range matchups, especially in the melee matchups. So this one's the EQ-WQ short trade. This one here actually weaved in an auto attack, which was quite nice. We'll take a look at this one again. EQ, auto, WQ, fade away. Now, what I love about these ones especially is what I would pay attention to is your W placement. So here, ideally, you start it with, ideally you either started with water or you started with grass. The reason starting it with grass can be quite effective into these melee matches that they can't auto attack you back, or they get a little bit confused. So you create that that sense of confusion. So I EQ here. Notice how the two little added little details that turn this trade from an average or like a good trade into a great trade is that I weave in an auto attack on the way up because they don't really know where I am, and then I select my other element downwards, so I kind of like do a fadeaway, like a Kobe or whatever, like fadeaway here, which is quite effective. So if I wanted to continue to trade, you know, if I felt as though I could all in my opponent, I would probably, you know, select my W above them, so I'm kind of on top of them at all costs. But in a lot of these sorts of matchups, you just want to be going for that short trade first, like we are here, to batter them up, and then we can go for like the all in later on. This is the exact same trade here. We'll see it again into an Echo. I go for the same combo, but this way I hold my Q on the back end. Sometimes you want to hold your Q on the back end just for self-peel, or maybe you think the jungle's going to come, or you think they're going to retrade onto you. You can hold your Q just for defense purposes. So the exact same trading pattern here. And I think we see it again for the third time. And this is my bread and butter. This is the bread and butter trading pattern in a lot of these mid to low range matchups. Exactly same thing here. So here we see it into Lucian. So, again, pretty stock standard. To recap, we have the simple grass Q poke. We have the QWQ poke combo when you can't really commit with your E, and then into the higher range matchups or the wave's in a bad spot. And then we have the classic E through a minion when you're very, very desperate. And then we have the EQ-WQ short trade. Again, very stock standard, basic trades. This should give you a little bit of direction with your early trading patterns. Now let's move on to the main all-in combos. So by now you should have a pretty good idea about what the basic trading combos are in the laning phase. Now we have the main all-in combo. So the first one, this is your bread and butter kill combo. You'll see this one from Beifeng a lot. This first clip here is an example of what it looks like a little bit slowed down. So we have the QWEQ combo. This is the classic bread and butter kill combo. What's so great about this and why it's the bread and butter combo is because finishing off with EQ basically secures the kill. If you were to start with, say, you know, EQ, WQ, they could theoretically like flash or, you know, use that gap closer and they can escape the damage. But if you actually QWEQ, it basically guarantees the kill. So hence why we want to default to QWEQ at all costs. And again, pretty stock standard here. QWEQ, over time, you'll get faster at it. It does take a little bit of time to get used to the speed of the combo, but the speed of the combo, again, will largely come with time. As you can see here, when I have the opportunity to do so, QWEQ, it's the go-to combo. This is the QWEQ combo, but starting with R. If we go back a little bit here, something that you know, we'll touch on a lot throughout this guide. R into QWEQ, pretty stock standard, nothing too fancy here. Again, plenty of examples of what it looks like. This is actually probably what it looks like if done really, really fast. It's basically, you know, no counterplay. Now, there's going to be situations where you don't go for the QWEQ combo. When someone has flash or they can dodge the initial Q or the starting Q, you don't really want to go for this combo. In those situations, I would hold and probably start with EQ to guarantee the stun. Okay, so this is an example where I'm going to like gank this Olaf, and I don't know if he has summoners, and I go for the QWEQ combo, and he just flashes my first Q, and now I'm just useless. There's no point of using that combo. So you've got to be a little bit careful and be aware of what their gap closer is. So generally when you're going for this combo, either you're out of vision, or someone else is there generating threat, in which they're not thinking about you, or again, they have no mobility, in which it doesn't even matter. So just something to keep in mind as you're playing around with this combo. But again, this should be your default bread and butter combo. Now, I want to talk about the max damage combo, right? And this is a combo that, you know, you're definitely going to have to practice, and it takes time. Even me, I don't do it perfectly every single time. And the reason this combo is important to know, though, is when, I mean, it's probably not your priority when you're first starting out because you won't be able to use prowlers, and we'll get to that later on. But it is important to know what the max damage combo is. So let's just say you're camping in a brush, right? It's in this exact part of the map where this happens a lot, where you're camping and then someone walks through or the top laner walks in or whatever happens, whether it's here or in a brush in the jungle. This is the max damage combo. So you auto first, R, Prowlers, QWEQ. Notice how it's basically these first three things plus the QWEQ combo. All right, so we'll take a look at it. We'll play it once and in normal speed, and then we'll play it again in slow motion. So auto, boom, that's what it basically looks like. Really, really fast, a lot of damage. Auto, boom, 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 boom. So here again, auto, R. So just, again, the auto isn't really necessary. It's just if you can, if they're completely caught off guard, you just get an extra auto win. It's really good. So auto R, Prowlers as early on as possible. So basically R first to keep them CC'd. R Prowlers. And the great thing about R Prowlers is that when you push them, into the wall and you Prowlers, you're instantaneously on top of them. Sometimes you can even weave in an extra auto attack here as well if you have the time, if you're really, really fast. So again, auto, R, Prowlers, QWEQ. Boom. Now, this is another one. Using a minion. Let's go through this one, pause it. Using a minion or other champion to gap close. So you E through a target and then you flash Q, R, WQ. This is quite good and important to know. And we're going to get to the drills later on. This is quite important in like more the mid to late game when you're trying to get onto a key target. So sometimes you go through a minion. Sometimes you're dashing through someone else when you really want to get to that key target. So maybe this is someone else and you really want to get to this person. Or maybe it's a scuttle. Maybe it's a minion. Whatever it might be. It's important we know how to do this one. So we E and then we flash Q, R, WQ. In slow motion, here we go. Again, don't stress too much about these two combos. These two, the one that I did here and that one, that will come later on. As long as you know how to do the QWEQ combo, we'll drill those other two ones later on. Now, this is another really important one. It's something that I learned as well. Using stealth to gap close, guys. When setting up ganks or going for solo kills, a lot of these guys are going to completely disrespect your ability to reposition inside of the stealth. So over time, the mindset you're going to develop when you play QIYANA is that you're kind of like a ninja. Your invisibility and your ability to use this invisibility must be refined over time. So here, I use the stealth to gap close. They don't see it coming, and then we're able to set up a gank. And this is something that, I do at least every 2 or 3 games. Boom. This one I actually hide my level 6. They don't actually see me get level 6 there, and I'm actually able to go in and get a nice little kill there because I'm able to hide my level 6 inside the stealth. So they're basically the basic all-in combos that I would urge you to experiment around with. Keep in mind that using Prowlers is not something I recommend early on in your journey, but again, we'll cover that in a second. Now let's talk about a few additional QIYANA micro details. So given how important it is to have the correct element, we really got to know that W range. So here we're in lane, ideally we're picking up the grass Q from behind the tower over that wall. You can also do it from over this section here. You can actually do it from here without even jumping on the wall if you take it from a little bit like a step above there, but it is as you can see here. It's really important you kind of know the range. Look at the range. You can take water all the way from basically the blue here. I would take some time in practice tool doing what I'm doing here to really feel out the range of the W. For me, at least, it was much longer than I expected it to be. I thought it was much lower range. You also got to really take the time to know your Q range. This is something that I didn't do myself, but I wish I did. I kind of dove right in, like, get my hands dirty and get in there, but it really bit me in the ass, and I think I had a lot of painful experiences that I probably could have avoided if I just spent some time in practice or really feeling out the W and Q ranges like this. So play around, figure out what the Q range is. And again, for me, it was a lot longer than I thought it would. Even R range like this, it's very, very surprising. I did not know how far the range was. I had no idea. So literally just sit in the river, play around with it. Very, very important to really know those ranges and get a feel for it. Another beautiful one to understand, especially for the laning phase here, is knowing the Q splash damage. So when you're getting poke off in lane, a lot of the time you're doing that QWQ poke combo or whatever it might be, or just simply the grass Q poke from a distance. If they're behind the minions, sometimes you can actually clip them with the splash damage. You need to know what this range is like. So look at that. I threw it and it still hits here. These are little details that do go a long way. But notice how that one, it gets blocked. Again, it's so with a lot of these Qs, it's going to stop at the first one, especially the grass Q here. Notice how it basically stops at the first minion it hits. Just something to keep in mind there. And understanding that splash damage. Now, this is a huge one. Knowing the distance from the wall range. So as you get more comfortable with, you know, the poke combos and things like that, we can start to work on our all-ins. One thing you're going to start to realize is that you need to direct a lot of attention to where they are standing in the lane. When you get very high elo, you'll verse players that know how to beat QIYANA. They will always stand in the middle of the lane. Like I recently versed like this Victor player that really understood QIYANA, and they were constantly just standing in the middle of the lane here. But as you're climbing through, you know, low diamond and things like that, people just don't know what the hell QIYANA does, honestly, or they don't respect her threats, and they will just stand too far to these sections here. Your goal is to always keep in mind where are they positioning. If they miss position in the lane, you can just go like we see here. He's way too far out, and I'm able to clip him on the edge here. So take a look at this. In my mind, it's kind of like these little barriers here. It's kind of like in here, in which you can knock them into the wall. But again, I would urge you to experiment with this and actively have a hypothesis and direct your attention to limit test. So here, as you can see, look how far away he is from the wall. But again, this is something that really caught me off guard when I was learning QIYANA, was like how far away you can actually stun them. So really keep that in mind as you are as you are having a go at these all-in combos. Now let's go over some drills that you guys can do in Practice Tool in order to refine your QIYANA micro. Now, I've thought really long and hard about this because I didn't want to give you guys some drills that I didn't truly believe in myself. And I thought back to the beginning of my journey and things that I struggled with myself. And look, I didn't want to set you 50 different drills for every single combo because that's not really what you need to do. I've distilled what I believe to be the top 3 drills, and if you do these 3 drills and can do them pretty reliably, you can basically do anything on QIYANA. And the first one, like I showed earlier on, is the max damage combo. I urge you to go again and again and again in the Practice Tool so you can do this pretty consistently. What I would recommend first though is ignore the prowlers. Just simply do the R, QWEQ first. Then do the auto R, QWEQ, then do the auto R prowlers QWEQ. I don't want you to worry too much about prowlers at the beginning of your QIYANA journey, not until you're at least 30 games in to QIYANA. But drilling this will really speed up the process. This one, again, very easy to drill again and again and again. I want you, first of all, what I would urge you to start with is simply not even E, ignore the E completely. Just do the flash Q, RWQ, right? Only do this part first. Actually, before you even get to that, you could probably even just do the Q, RWQ. Try that first on just a stationary target on a practice little dummy here. Then do the flash QRWQ, then do the E flash. Okay, that would be like the progression of doing this drill. And as for drilling it, these drills, do them over and over again. At least, do as a warm up before you get into QIYANA games. 5 minutes tops, shouldn't really be that long. And then after you've been comfortable with these 2 ones here, the last one that I would urge you to go into is the QWEQ. So what I would urge you to do is start very slow like I'm doing here. Literally go Q, W, E, Q. Do it nice and slow, nice and slow. Don't worry too much about the speed. Just get a feel for the range of the E, the range of the W onto the terrain, and then speed it up progressively. QWEQ, QWEQ. Just keep doing it until you speed up the process of it. Do it in differing parts of the map. Do it facing downwards, facing upwards, etc, etc, etc. Exactly the same with the other drills. Don't do it from the same direction over and over again. Make sure that you're flashing downwards. Make sure you're flashing upwards. Make sure you're eating this way, downwards, upwards. Alternate it as much as you possibly can because you don't want to really build muscle memory just going one direction. That'll kind of bite you in the ass when you come to execution in the real game. So hopefully these 3 drills, guys, will help you out. I truly believe that if you can do these 3 things, everything else is pretty straightforward. It's there, and don't worry about the speed first. Speed will come. Focus on getting the order correct and understanding why the order is what it is. Then, and then slowly increase that speed, just like it did with the QWEQ combo. Now for a short clip on wall hops, because terrain scaling with QIYANA is pretty important to understand. So pretty stock standard stuff here. I'm just going to walk you through a series of wall jumps that you can do with QIYANA. The key being you want to ensure that you're able to get grass queue as much as possible. Obviously, you know, we can go through any wall and just be like, oh, I can jump there. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to select and know the distances of our W so we can select the grass element. So when you're escaping, you're not just stuck with earth element, because being stuck with earth element doesn't really do anything for you. It's only for finishing off people. So these are the things you can do. Notice how I'm directing my cursor towards the grass. So I'm not just jumping over the wall. I'm actually getting grass element as well at the exact same time. And these are all relatively straightforward, very replicable ones that you guys can do. This one's incredibly important, especially when you're escaping ganks and trying to set up kills in the jungle. And the reason being, just to reiterate why you want to be able to get the grass element, not only just for escaping, but let's just say you're trying to go for a pick on the jungler here. You don't have access to water element, right? There's no water here, unless there's obviously the ocean, so it's a different story, but there's no water element. So if you're trying to maximize damage, you want access to two differing elements. And obviously, ending off with the earth element makes a lot more sense, because you're going to get the added damage when they're below 50% HP. So ideally, you're starting with another element, whether it's grass or water, such that you're getting the passive proc twice. So that's why, you know, another reason why it's very important to understand the max ranges of these little wall hops here. So notice on this one, by the way, I don't think you actually can on the other side of the map. I don't think you can. I'm not 100% sure this one. I believe you can't though, but I might be wrong. This one is a little bit tricky to do, but definitely possible. Again, pretty stock standard stuff, just showing you many of the different examples of areas that you can get the grass queue. Again, I would urge you to go into practice tool and try this yourself. This one around Baron, again, very, very important to understand. This one is absolutely crucial when you're roaming from mid to bot and try and loot behind the enemy bot lane. This one I've done many, many, many times. And again, try these in your own time. So now what we're going to do is go through my laning tips. Now in my previous guide, I've actually just listed out a bunch of tips, like I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this time I'm actually just going to show you clips instead. There's going to be no text, purely clips of all my pieces of advice that I wish I had myself as I was grinding out the QIYANA. So first things first, grass queue is your best friend. Use it to confuse and buy time for your cooldowns. When I first started playing QIYANA, I completely underestimated the utility that grass queue offers. I heard and I saw that people were using it, but it didn't really click until way, way later on in my QIYANA journey that, holy shit, grass queue is actually really, really good. So you need to, I guess, better your relationship with grass queue, if that makes sense. You need to spend time with it, play around with it, just like I've done here versus his said. He ults me, I grab another grass queue, I dick around, make sure that he can't really kill me. And it should be your bread and butter element that you default to. You can confuse opponents. You can go one way, confuse them, go another way. Always trying to take grass queue a second time if possible. You can juke them, do a lot of different things. It allows you to stay safe in sticky situations, especially in these early river skirmishes. You can create space and buy time. It's a really, really useful thing to get used to. It allows you to safely extend fights. So here, for example, I want to chase down this Graves, but I know the enemy mid lane is around the area. So again, I'm just buying time. I'm taking grass queue. I'm creating space. I'm allowed to go in, because if I go in with any other element, I just die here. So now I'm able to buy time for my team, in which we're able to clean up people on the back end. So again, default response, whether it's in the lane or your transition to fights, grass queue is your best friend. Now, one of the other tips I wish I had earlier on as well was that you wanted ideally like simply just sit on it, like hold the grass queue, just don't use it. Like simply having it available is what prevents them from just diving onto you. So when you're versing these matchups like Lucian, for example, just simply sitting on the grass queue like this prevents them from just eating onto you, because they know they can't really chase. So just having it available, just holding it like this in CS, and can actually create space for you to CS. So something to keep in mind as you're trying to minimize these harder matchups. And it also negates any possible all-in and trading attempt, as we're about to see here with this Katarina. Just simply holding onto it. I'm only using the abilities, my abilities on the wave when absolutely necessary. It's very similar to playing Echo or like even like a Twisted Fate, where it is my key self-peel ability. If I'm Twisted Fate and using my gold card or my W on the wave, then it leaves me exposed. So when I don't immediately need to push and move, or I can't immediately push and move, what I'm going to be doing is simply, I'm just going to be simply holding onto it. I'm just going to be simply holding onto it, just like I am doing here with this Katarina, so she can't really just dive onto me. And again, if any of you have watched my Fizz guide, one of the biggest things I talk about in that guide is the importance of threatening your Q range as Fizz. The exact same premise applies when you're looking to dominate your opponent as QIYANA. You want to really walk up, posture aggressively, and threaten that E range, because that's what's going to really allow you to take those trades. So obviously if they tether effectively, you're just going to be forced to maybe do a QWQ or a simple Q poke trade like I highlighted in the basic early trade section. But a lot of the time, if you're confident in your micro, you know their micro is not that good, you can just do this. You can just kind of hover, click back and forth, and then, you know, close the gap whenever possible. And there as well, here as well, if I'm going to optimize this trade, I probably should have just autoed here and then fade away like W behind me and then Q. But I think here I was a little bit caught off guard by the heck where I'm hovering behind the Oriana here. But the same premise applies. Again, here another example of tethering aggressively with that E, really trying to get on top of them. Again, this will come with time, just like it does with Fizz, but really understanding that high quality clicks and really understanding the tethering here, clicking close next to your character will confuse your opponent and allow you to close the gap, just like it has done in these past two examples here. And when you're versing a lot of these poke matchups, don't be afraid to heavy trade. Like, one of the mistakes I made when I was playing QIYANA was like, okay, you know, I can't win. Like, oh my god, I'm just slowly getting poked out, or like I got to farm to my level 6 or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, you know, when you're playing versus matchups that don't like chaos, whether it's any artillery mage or higher cooldown mage, don't be afraid to heavy trade, burn their abilities. So here, for example, I go for a really heavy trade. I'm okay to take damage on the back end. I've got biscuits, I've got refillable. I know that if he's low and I'm low, I'm much better off. I've already burnt the exhausted level 2 here. These sorts of trades in these mage matchups are great for you. You have very good gank setup. You have very good... you thrive in chaos, and obviously the way your Q function, the way your Earth Q works, the lower they are, the more damage you're going to do. This is what's going to allow you to solo kill people. So get comfortable with getting low. Okay, you're going to get low. It's inevitable. Like Silas, you don't really want to waste resources on the way. So if I'm getting shoved in a hard matchup like this, remember, if you think back to my Silas guide, one of the biggest things I spoke about was the importance of actually conserving your ability, so you can actually, and your HP, so that you can trade onto the enemy when they disrespect. Now, QIYANA, as we all know, is a very level 3 oriented champion. If you end up, you know, trying to get every single little bit of CS and use all of your abilities on the wave, there's going to be no window for you to trade onto the enemy. You're just slowly going to lose every single lane phase. At some point, you're going to have to make a sacrifice for CS in order to close the gap and get a good trade onto the enemy, because you're never going to win a slow, you know, in these mages, you're never going to win if you play conservatively like a control mage. You need to play like a chaotic assassin. So here, for example, you know, I stand away from the minions. I don't take too much damage. I actively sacrifice my CS here, knowing that I really need to start heavy trading with his Riser level 3. He disrespects me. I'm able to get my... maximize my auto attack damage with my passive here, and we end up trading flash for flash and heavy trade. And this is excellent for me, right? In a matchup like this that is this hard, this is beautiful. Now I know he has no flash, which is going to increase my kill threat at level 6. This is again encapsulating the chaotic mindset of playing QIYANA in the early lane. Don't tunnel in on the CS. Again, this is a classic example of the poke trade in action here in the early lane, when you can't really get close to someone. So notice how I'm Eing through a minion and then QWQ when you can finish him off. Don't just tunnel in on using it as a poke trade. It can also be used as like an actual, finishing someone off. Now, this is probably the one thing that I struggled with the most in the early lane with QIYANA, was actually weaving in auto attacks. Now, what you'll find as you start to play a lot of QIYANA is that your default response is going to go for that short trade. You're going to start your default to the EQ WQ type thing. You know, where I was going onto the Yone and the all-in or the trading combo, where I would E, I would Q, auto, and then fade away, WQ, go for that like nice little short trade. Well, a lot of the time, QIYANA actually has a lot of extended trading ability, especially when you're utilizing the passive auto attack or the added damage you get from having an element. So here, what I had to rewire my brain to do was simply sit on my element and just auto attack them. So notice here how I just auto, and then I QWQ. So here in the past, if this was, I think this was way later on in my journey, if this was my 30 or 40th game, what I would have done is I would have just instantly EQ'd and then WQ'd. That would have either scared them off and they would have instantly flashed or something, or I just wouldn't have maximized my damage, because I need to maximize my auto attack damage with my passive there. I'm able to get 2 extra autos there. Then I can follow up with my abilities. And using W to avoid skill shots, whether it's a LeBlanc, whether it's a Zed, any skill shot oriented champion, just keep that in mind. So here when I'm versing Zed, a lot of the time I'm going to be using my W reactively in order to avoid skill shots. I'll simply hold on to my W. So notice here I hold onto my W, so it allows me to maximize that range and dodge skill shots. So I'm simply holding it reactively. Look at this. See that last little one there? I didn't just rush into using my W straight away, because I know if I use my W straight away, I'm just going to be left exposed. So I actually sit on my W for a little bit and wait to see what they do, then use it, just so I know that I'm out of range. So again, keep in mind that in these skill shot oriented matchups, holding your W reactively will really pay dividends. Something that I wish that I knew myself. Now let's go over a few extra lane tips that I've picked up along the way, along my QIYANA journey. So diving straight into these extra tips, the first one here is actually standing out of vision in hard matchups to soak XP. Now, I have done this very reliably into matchups like LB, like Lucian, like Ryze, even some other control mages like Orianna and things like that, where you actually just sit here in the side lane brush. Now, I thought that this was a gimmick. I thought it wasn't really that replicable, but it is very replicable. And what I've actually found it to do is that a lot of the time they kind of think you're AFK, and if they think you're AFK, they're actually going to shove the way faster than they would have otherwise. And if they shoved away faster, it's like, great, I can just W over this wall and then boom, get to the tower, and then I'm all good. Now, in the scenario where they try to find you, if they walk in here, you just W over this wall. Sometimes what they'll do is even walk around here to try and find you, but if you're not there, they'll just go back and then you W over the wall. So as long as you sit on the corner or the edge of the brush, you will get the XP. It is something that I would urge you guys to experiment with in your own time in some of these trickier matchups, but it is definitely replicable and something I would urge you to play around with. So just like this, just chilling, sitting off to the side, pretending that I'm AFK. Funnily enough, it does work in quite a few games. And then I think he ends up walking up here, and that, as the minions are getting low, and then I'll begin to reposition and camp around this corner here. Boom, still getting XP. And then I show up, and then, oh, I'm not AFK, guys. In some of these other melee matchups, you can actually start W, in which you can actually get two passive procs. So ideally, you're actually starting with water or grass. That way, you're kind of giving away that you're starting W, but the same premise applies, where you kind of just start with either grass or water, and then as they go up to you, auto W to the side, and then get another auto attack. And look how much damage your passive autos do in a situation like this. So this is kind of replicable in some of these melee matchups. But against really good level 1 champs like Yone, like Yasuo, can't think of any others off the top of my head, you don't really win this trade level 1. So I would still start Q. I'll probably show an example of this later on in the guide. But in these matchups that kind of have a weaker, more linear level 1, and especially when you're standing behind your minions like this is very replicable. And again, this also highlights the lower damage only due to one element. So, for example, in a Galio matchup here, I kind of camp around the corner. I see that he was trying to defend the invade, the late invade. So I just sit here and then I actually W over the wall. But this shows, notice how I'm only going to have one element, right? So I'm auto-attacking them with the same element. Whereas in the previous clip, I auto-attacked them with two differing elements, which allowed me to proc the passive twice. And it kind of shows the difference in the amount of damage that you can do. Now, this clip here shows the importance of the speed of the combo. Now, earlier on in the guide, I spoke about how, depending on how quick you are with the combo, it will alter the kill threat that you have on certain opponents. This is an example where the speed of my combo just isn't good enough. So here I actually try to go for a play onto the Syndra, a really quick EQ WQ, but because I'm not Bayfeng level yet, the Syndra actually has enough time to flash while rooted. So here I go for the EQ WQ, but I'm too slow, and which he flashes. So that is a perfect example of how a speed of a combo literally changes the amount of kill threat that you have on someone. Okay, so over time, this is why when you watch players like Bayfeng, these amazing QIYANA players, they're able to do things that you're just simply not able to do just through raw APM and speed of the combo. Sometimes you can actually do this sort of thing. You can actually use your W to reposition to get a better angle with the R. Here I actually W and go for that. Unfortunately, I missed the Q on the back end, but we end up getting him anyway, but it's something cool you can do. Now, in melee matchups, what you want to do in a lot of these melee matchups is you always want to kite to the walls. So this is replicable into some Fizz matchups, into Akali matchups, Zed matchups, things like that. Stay by the walls, bait them in, and if they go in, and especially below, I would say below D2, this is very replicable. As you start to get like D1 master tier, like Zeds and stuff like that, they won't kind of fall for this trap. But the same premise applies. So I would still do it anyway, even if they know how to play around QIYANA. So if we rewind a little bit, I'm chilling. I know that they know that I don't have my second W, but it doesn't matter because I can just, do that. So and here's another example. I think this was another Z game. Boom, he dives onto me. I WEQ. Nothing he can really do. Very replicable. Faking roams with sweeper is also very viable. So instead of just fully committing to roams, everyone thinks of QIYANA as a roam-oriented champion. What you can actually do is kind of just hover between your pink wards and your sweeper. You can just sit out of vision, and when they come by, maybe sometimes they follow you because they're panicking, like, oh my god, I gotta get something done because, the QIYANA's gonna roam and explode my bot lane. And then sometimes I'll follow like this, and which you can just capitalize, and then you can kind of just kill them on the back end. There, I probably could have weaved in one more passive auto, but it is what it is. And again, same example, hovering here, and if they come, I will kill them, and if they don't come, I'm still exerting pressure on the bot lane. So sometimes you don't really want to commit to a roam, or you don't feel like you're needed. Simply just sitting here is the way to go. So don't always default to fully committing to roams. You'll be surprised at how many champions will come and just blindly follow you into the river or into the jungle. And even when you're recalling like this, simply just sweep and recall out of vision. So right now, they don't know if I'm fully committing to a bot roam here or simply resetting. This sort of thing is very replicable. And then you can just adapt on the fly there. Also keep in mind that Ocean Soul changes terrain. So when you do have Ocean Soul, you can get Water Element in the jungle, which is huge, especially for getting multiple passive procs in the jungle and also setting up ganks and that sort of thing. So it's in the pits of the main jungle camps, so the Raptors, the Buffs here, but it's actually not in the Gromp pit and not in the Krugs pit. So something for you guys to actually to think about when you're versing when you get Ocean Soul, or when Ocean Soul's in the game. Also, I wanted to highlight this. This is a little bit of an interesting one. So as you start to get better at QIYANA, you'll notice that there's something called, I don't know really how to articulate it, but it's basically a lack of decisiveness. So here is an example where I'm kind of coming from out of vision. And this is something I kind of noticed in Beifeng. Like, he'll do something where it's so fast that the enemy doesn't have time to react. So what on paper looks like not really a good play, or like surely they can flash it, they can't, because if you don't hesitate as QIYANA, you can really catch people off guard. So this is a perfect example where I'm walking to lane here, and Lucian instantly walks up. Like, he's not actually seeing me yet, and he doesn't actually expect me to instantly go onto him. I could have just instantly EQR, boom, one shot. But I hesitate. I'm like, oh, should I go? Should I not? Now he sees me, and now he's mentally, in his mental stack, he's prepared to actually dash my combo because I don't actually have my water element, and it could get very messy. So a lot of the time when you're playing QIYANA, you're going to be in these situations where you're hesitating, like, fuck, do I go? Do I not go? But if you're thinking it and you're overthinking it, a lot of the time the play is gone. They're prepared. They're mentally preparing for your all-in, which is, it's probably not going to work unless there's obviously they have no sums or they have no mobility. It doesn't matter. But especially against these champs that have mobility, you've missed the window. It can be literally a split second like that. You've missed the window. That's all it takes for you to just miss that opportunity. So as you get better at QIYANA, this is something that I would urge you guys to play around with in your own time as well. Now for the juicy stuff. Now for the mid-game advice, guys. This is where QIYANA gets very fun and very interesting. So kicking it off, we're going to talk about using Grass Q to create space. Very similar to what I spoke about within the early laning tips, using Grass Q in lane to simply create space or confuse opponents. It's the exact same premise in team fights. A lot of the time, you're just going to be skirting around the sides, using your Grass Q, generating threat, and you can create a lot of space for your teammates. So here's an example where Ezreal dashes in, and then I simply throw down my Grass Q, and I'm kind of getting a gauge of what's happening on the team fight. So I grab a Grass Q again, and then boom, I'm able to reposition and get a kill. Simply by using my Grass Q like this, Ezreal's forced to go backwards. If I were to use maybe Earth or Water and just throw it at them, they know where I am. It's very easy for them to play around me. So simply sitting in the stealth like this is going to make Pyke's life harder, Ezreal's life harder. It's basically splitting up the fight completely. Sometimes you don't even need to commit. Sometimes they're going to be so scared that they won't even commit to the fight. But then Ezreal's like, oh shit, I don't know where he is. And then I'm able to just kill him on the back end. Lissandra then uses flash ult on one target, and we end up just destroying them in the team fight. This is another example here where it's straight front to back. I'm not able to get to the objective early and set up a flank. So again, I'm using Grass Q to create space for my team. I'm giving space for my team to enter into the fight. Again, confusing the opponent, making their mental stacks really overwhelmed, throwing a grass crew through the middle of the fight right now to, again, really confuse them. They don't know where I am. Braum's like, what the hell? Who do I go on? And then they lose track of me, and then I'm able to kind of split off and then pick a wild kale on the back end there. Again, same thing, using grass crew to confuse opponents. I believe this one was from a Midland Academy member. Yeah, I think this one was, this was from a Midland Academy member who also plays QIYANA. I thought this was a really great example of patience in team fights and actually using grass Q. Look at this. He completely ignores the front to back here because he doesn't have ultimate. He can't play the front to back. QIYANA dives onto the back line. And now here, he could theoretically play the front to back and try and kill these guys, but you're really not going to, you're probably going to lose the front to back versus Malzahar. So he beelines for the Malzahar and simply just throws down a grass. Look at this. Boom. And now look at these guys. Rakan is peeling back, Malzahar's going out, he's creating space, splitting the fight in half, just like I did in the other clip before. Sits in the grass queue, grabs another grass queue, same thing. Malzahar has to back up, these guys are starting to shit themselves, where's QIYANA, what is she doing? Then they're going to get frustrated, or they're going to continue to walk forward into you like this, boom. Look at this. Forcing the Malzahar to walk back, splitting the team. Renekton's now at the front. Caitlyn's not DBSing. She's walking back as well. Simply being here in the grass is allowing your team to win the front to back. And then finally you can go in, Malzahar gets pissed off, and you win the fight. I thought that was just a beautiful example of using grass Q to create space in fights. So shout out to Helia for that one. Really, really awesome clip. This one's actually a Bayfeng clip. I think he uses grass Q beautifully in team fights to really create space. Same thing here, you'll see. He uses grass Q straight away, repositions, dodges skill shots, grabs another grass Q. Again, same thing, holds onto it, auto attack, utilizing his passive elements as much as possible, sorry. Again, using that stealth to reposition and create chaos. Again, this is another beautiful example of two things. Also note the river stun. This is something we'll talk a lot about in this guide, is the usage of river stun. Obviously, your R stuns in the river, not just on walls. How he repositions, he goes through it for a front-to-back ultimate here through the entire team. This is something you can do when maybe you're too scared to flank, or they have a champion that can really prevent you from getting into the fight, or maybe the fight's already ensued in which you need to get in there and create space for your team. But then again, same thing, you'll see in a second. He constantly, grass Q, chill, because he can't expose himself in these fights. He's just going to get one shot. Grass Q again, playing patient, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Pick someone off, reposition, waits on the side, doesn't commit until he has grass Q again. Boom, auto attack. Grass Q again. Not going in yet, doesn't expose himself because he knows if he goes in, that can turn on him and kill him. And then he's able to kind of clean up on the back end there. Really, really great stuff there. So that's something I would urge you to look for both in the VODs that you see on YouTube, your own VODs, and just moving forward, something to think about. So flanking and coming in from the side, very important with QIYANA. Simply being in the side allows you to get onto the back line, this sort of thing, constantly using the blast cones, your terrain scaling, the wall hops to get yourself in a position like this. So here, I knew my team was doing dragon. If they commit to the dragon, I get complete backline access. If they don't and they bitch it, they're going to funnel into me, and I'm going to be able to clean up. It's a win-win for me. So these sorts of angles where you're able to kind of sit off to the side, this is what allows you to really juice the max from your kit. And then they panic, and I kind of mess up my combo here. I fat finger my flash, but the same premise applies here. Same thing. You'll see me take sweeper, and you'll see a lot of the great QIYANAs just take sweeper, and then constantly be a ninja. Utilize that grass Q, position around the side, trying to find that angle to get onto the back line. You don't want to be that front to back standard mage type player. Be patient. Maneuver around the jungle like this. Try and put yourself in a position. Don't just think about where they are now. Think about where they could be. So here, for example, I knew that Kassadin was bot. And I knew that after he went bot, he's going to come mid to try and defend. So I can put myself in a position to kill them when they're in transition in between lanes. And this is the importance of, making sure that you're coming from the side, trying to find those flanks, and maneuvering around the jungle. And this is where most of your time and effort when you're learning QIYANA is going to be spent, especially once you get 40 plus games and you're trying to hone in on that mid game. Notice I'm always off to the side, trying to make them make a choice, so that if they commit forwards, I'm able to maneuver around to the back. I'm just being this sneaky little annoying champion here. So again, they move in and I get straight backline access here. Unfortunately, I don't have ult or anything, but I'm still able to kind of split the fight here, come in, get straight onto the fiddle. Boom. Look at that. Really clean stuff. Now, again, like I said earlier on, think about where they will be, not just where they are now. This will require a lot of your mental stack. So, you know, this comes later on in your Kiana journey, but especially around objectives, whether it's a dragon, a rift, a tower, or a buff, or whatever it might be, think about where they are going to be. Now, I knew they were going to collapse onto the Baron here. Instead of playing the front to back, I sit off to the side, wait for them to come in, and then I'm able to kind of pick off in rotation like this. Pretty straightforward. Didn't even use Prowlers there. Didn't think I needed to, but bit sloppy. And same thing, constantly maneuvering around the fights. They're trying to scout for me. So what happens in a lot of these scenarios, in the process of actually trying to maneuver and get onto the backline, sometimes you will fail. Sometimes you'll just be too late to the fight. You know, you're dicking around trying to get the perfect location. They're trying to find you. Like here, what happens is that I know that the enemies kind of walk in trying to contest us around the Baron, but I didn't want to kind of walk in from the front. So I'm like, beautiful, I got a nice little flank position. I know they're going to funnel in. I'm like, okay, amazing. So then I wait for them to commit a little bit. I wait for them to get into the river. And then here I kind of walk up, but then they actually just re-engage onto my team before I can even get there. Because I didn't want to walk in and face check that entire team. And then I end up we just get screwed here because I come in too late and they find me and I die. This is a good quality mistake. And this is where a lot of my games are lost, honestly. Where I'm just kind of just chilling. I'm trying to get onto the backline. I'm trying to maneuver, be creative, and then I just get picked off. And that's okay. I learn from this, you know. It's like, I would rather push my limits and try to, you know, be creative with my champion than just lose a front to back. I don't want to play the front to back in a situation like this versus like a Graves, like a Fed Graves and a Rel and a Zyre. It's just impossible. Tristana, sorry. But again, here, this is another perfect example of the importance of coming from the side. I know where they're going to be because they have to come to this Baron. They think we're on the Baron. So I'm just going to sit off onto the side, make them make a choice, and then boom, I'm able to get a nice little 4-man ultimate onto the side. So these are the sorts of things you can do when you're actually thinking about where they can be. So this is what I call, I call it the taking people's soul regank. For those of you who read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, taking souls, baby. You gank top once, or side lane once, boom, so I go top to kill this set. Pretty stock standard gank, kill the set, and then because I have plenty of resources and I don't really need to reset, I come back mid, catch one more wave, and look at this, shove, 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 and now I know that because he doesn't have TP, he's going to, off the reset, walk straight back top. So, if I want to take this guy's soul and remove him out of the game and make him tilt, I'll go straight back top, regank, and this is actually very replicable. And the reason why this is replicable, guys, is because when you roam, the default response from the enemy mid laner is to roam onto the opposite side of the map, trading sides of the map, right? He's like, well, there's nothing I can do top. He's already killed my top laner. I'm actually going to try and get something done on the opposite side. So this is why this is very replicable. Zed's given me the room to go for this roam because he committed to bot side there. So I instantly go back top as he's walking back top here. I know that he has to come here because he's missing all this farm. Set's thinking, well, I have no choice. I got to get this. There's no jungle camps. I got to go for it. And then me and Silas are on the same page here, so we're able to kind of kill this guy again. And that guy's out. He's checked out. He ended up like going 0-10 that game. Now, creative jungle ganks. These are also very replicable. When you're ahead, you've got a little bit of tempo, you can come into the jungle, sweep through with good quality pinks at sweeper, and make these jungle ganks. These are replicable on the second buff rotation, 6 minutes 50, very, very replicable. You can even do them later into the game like this. You know, just crazy shit like that. It's just super, super easy. Something that I would urge you guys to look for. I do this probably once every 4 games. Probably could even do it more if I was better at QIYANA. But again, same thing here. I know Jhin is in rotation, coming from one side of the map to the other, because laner time is getting swapped up. So I can think about that in the future with my tempo and go for these nice little picks here. Now, very important tip. Just like any other assassin, you really want to get to objectives early. So knowing that this dragon is the next objective, I try to, you know, actively reset way in advance, get myself into a position where I can get onto the back line. So here you actually see me, I'm starting to try and maneuver. I know they're coming in from here, and if they don't come in from here, I'm still going to be able to get onto the back line. So I'm trying to maneuver around here, and then this is the importance of getting to the objective early, and then they're frustrated, they don't know where I am, and then the fiddle gets caught off guard, and I'm able to get a nice little pick before the dragon. And that would never happen if I'm getting late to an objective. Same thing here, I get to the objective early, I know exactly where they're coming in from, so I'm able to sit off to the side like this, boom, 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 boom. Same thing, setting off to the side, getting to objective early, basically creating complete chaos, preventing their team from getting into the fight. Really stock standard stuff. And a lot of the time, guys, it doesn't even matter if they know you're there. So here, for example, they knew where I was. They knew I was here, but they couldn't do anything about it. There's nothing they can do about it. They know I'm here, so what? So, because you're still going to create that threat from the side lane. So here I'm sitting on a ward. Now, if they commit, I just get free access onto their backline. But if they don't commit, we just get the dragon, and we're probably just going to win the front to back team fight over there with the 4-1. So then they're all scared. Xerath is trying to use the E from a side, and then boom, I'm able to go straight onto the backline, get onto the Xerath, and you know, play the front to back here. So really, really, really good, solid example of coming in from the side. This is, another perfect example of simply being there can deter them from doing the objective. So here, for example, I think 2 of our members had died and they were going to go for the Baron, but then I'm trying to maneuver around the side, create space like I've been talking about so far in this guide. And just because they know I'm here, they're actually too scared to start the Baron because they know I'm here. I'm showing, they're trying to find me. And because I'm too, you know, I've got too much mobility, I'm able to kind of skirt around the sides. They don't end up committing to the Baron, and then I'm able to just kind of escape and just do my thing here. Look at that. So again, simply being there can deter them from objectives. Now, I remember this was actually one of my, I think this was in my first 5 games of playing QIYANA. I remember I was versing a Zac here, and I wanted to show this clip. I played the all-in here horribly, but I remember having this thought in my mind, like, I could have killed this Zac. What the hell? So look at this. I end up ulting him and going for a pick here, and I could have killed him if I ignited him. I didn't even do the combo properly. And I was so caught off guard. And that's the power of the percent HP damage with your ultimate. So I would urge you, you know, as you're getting more familiar with QIYANA and you're trying to like just figure out what the limits of the champion are, do this sort of thing. Even if it's a tank, especially once you get your Cyrildas, this is what's really gonna, you're gonna get surprised. Like there's just no way around it. You are gonna get caught off guard. So don't be afraid to push your limits and test how much damage you can do even into the tankier members. Now, this is another little interesting thing. This was later into the game. We're probably going to win the game anyway, but because Flash is so important to QIYANA, sometimes I'll just die to conserve my Flash, because if I have Flash, I can basically kill anyone on their backline. I can kill any squishy. So if I Flash here and escape, it doesn't really do anything for me. We're probably just going to reset soon anyway. So I will rather die and conserve my Flash. Especially, I mean, unless I have a huge shutdown, of course, but just conserving Flash is something that I would really urge you guys to consider moving forward. Now, this is where the pain, the ego is going to take a hit here, guys. I'm going to show you a little bit of a fail montage, because you are going to fail. You're going to misplay. You're going to throw ults to Narnia. You're going to die at level 3, level 2. You're going to do the most stupid things, and you're going to think, why am I so terrible at this champion? Trust me, you cannot possibly be worse at the champion than I was when I first started. I guarantee you. So here, it's a little fail montage of me just doing, it's just random shit, honestly. Just failing, missing all of my abilities. Just have a laugh at me, honestly. This is me trying to get into position early to an objective and just completely failing, getting question mark ping, going for completely missing my ultimate on targets, over flashing, going for level 3 dives and dying. Anyway, you know, this stuff's gonna happen, all right, guys? So don't stress too much. It's inevitable. You're going to fail. Learn to fail. It's part of the QIYANA process. So as we all know, QIYANA's art is her bread and butter ability. It's basically what makes QIYANA QIYANA. It's what makes her a burst-oriented assassin. And it's crucial that we adopt the correct mindset around this ability. It's not good enough to just go to every single situation and be like, should I use R like this? Should I use R like this? No, you got to have the right mindset. You simultaneously need to be okay with doing 2 things at the exact same time. You need to be okay with instantaneously using it with no hesitation, like I said earlier on, with the importance of, you know, no hesitation going in, because you will miss opportunities. But at the same time, you can't have this very blasé mentality where it's like, okay, I'm just going to throw out my R here, peel for my teammates here. No, you got to, because without ultimate, you don't really do anything. You really, really need your ultimate. So this is one thing that I found incredibly difficult to, I guess, wrap my head around. I was either too nervous to use, like, oh my God, if I miss this and I'm useless. But because I wasn't using it, I wasn't learning. So what I would recommend at the start, I would try and use it with no hesitation. Like, just use it, figure out how much damage it does, get used to it, but then slowly turn it down. You're not going to be able to go from, Okay, the way I view it's kind of like on a scale. So let's say we have like a speedometer, like on a car, right? Let's just say this is a pretty scuffed drawing here, but we have a speedometer. This is like 100 and this is 0. What I would urge you to do is first go to the extreme. Just rev the shit out of the car, go to 100, use it all the time. Then, as you start to realize what the ability is kind of capable of and what the consequences are of actually utilizing your ultimate, tone it down, then go to the other extreme. Be really, really conservative with it. Go to 0. Like barely use it, only use it when you really, really need to, and then find that, naturally, if you do this process, you'll find that balance point in the middle. That's what we really need to do. And you're not going to find this balance point by going to either extreme. You need to go to both extremes. You can't just sit on one of these and camp there and just, only use it with no hesitation or never use it. You've got to do both and tone it down and experiment. And remember, simply the threat of having R is huge. And a lot of people forget about that. They will use it. They'll view it, I either have it and I'm going to kill someone, or I don't have it and I can't do anything. A lot of the time they forget the threat of simply having it available, just like Twisted Fate R, just like Gali R, can completely change the behavior of your opponents. So that's something as well you really got to keep in mind. So let's actually go into examples with R usage. So diving in here, we have some creative Rs. You can actually use it as kind of like a setup tool from a distance to CC and lock down members. Occasionally I will do this when my jungler is trying to go for a play somewhere and they're next to a wall. It's not usually my default response because it is quite, I guess, risky, and I really don't want to miss it, but it is something at least you should consider. Like I said here, it's risky, especially when they're kind of in the jungle and I know they can't really escape it. I will go for it, but it's not my default response. A lot of people forget these brush Rs. For me especially, I actually forgot they existed for the longest time. So here, for example, I know she's not even anywhere near the wall, but if I push her into the brush, she's going to get stunned. So something you guys need to actively consider. Again, when you're playing QIYANA, don't just tunnel in on pushing him into the wall. The significance of R around Baron and Dragon because of the terrain and how much of an AoE factor it has. Simply using it around the Baron pit can just generate a mass amount of threat. So when I'm in these Baron situations, what I try to do is bait them into the pit as much as possible, in which I can get as much damage off in these team fights. The way I view these Baron situations is either I'm making a pick beforehand as they're in transition to the objective. So like, maybe I'm positioned over here or positioned over here and killing someone on the backline, or I'm actively kind of sitting near the pit, creating space with my grass queue, and when they go in, use my ultimate on the Baron pit, and then they can't really do anything. So as you can see here, Zed dives onto me, I instantly push him into the wall, and I get an AoE stun, hit the Rengar on the back end, and make their entire life miserable. Something you guys definitely need to experiment with. And again, I think this is largely feel. Now, this is one lesson that I feel as though I probably should have known given my experience playing Fizz, but it was kind of like a wake-up call. You got to say no. If you don't think you can one-shot someone, right, don't feel guilty for just saying no. So here, for example, the enemy Kha'Zix walks up to go to the dragon. I know he's level 9. He's a level up onto me, and I actually don't have my prowlers. And I remember thinking in this moment, I don't think I can reliably kill this Kha'Zix without trading my life with the enemy Zyra and the little Blanc that are walking up right now. And so instead of just going for it and trading my life, which I don't really think is necessary, I'm just going to hold my ult for a more reliable situation. So don't be afraid of just simply saying no. A lot of the time, like as I was learning QIYANA, I was like being, okay, I've got to go. I've got ult, I've got ignite, go. But I'm like, it really bit me in the ass because I was just trading one for one over and over again. I wasn't really getting anywhere. I was kind of just digging myself a hole. So yes, if you feel like you can kill or maybe you're unsure, limit test, yes, but don't be afraid to say no. One of the other bad habits I had as I was learning QIYANA as well is that I tried to greed my R a lot, where like I was making a pick. Like this actually lost me the game. I was in a beautiful position to go for a pick on the 80 carry 21 minutes into the game. We would have got Baron after this, but I tried to go for like a QWEQ combo or something. I messed it up in the first place. But I remember thinking to myself, why don't I just use R? Just EQ R, just go for the kill. If I get this kill on a key target at 21 minutes, the game's over. So this was a painful experience I had early on in my journey where I just realized holding R, just be very careful with it, and I ended up compensating on the back end anyway, just completely fucking the game for no reason. The other thing here, understand players like this will cost you games. So here I was actually trying to look for a creative roam onto the bot lane and get something done, but I end up being spotted on a ward or something like that, and I end up using my ultimate as a peel tool here, and just completely screwing my ult. Now, when you're ahead and trying to translate leads with QIYANA, you don't really need to make these really low probability plays, because you scale completely fine, especially when you have plenty of AP. I mean, this game's probably not a good example because I don't really have much AP on my team, but as long as you have AP on your team, you scale completely fine. So what happened, I found myself when I got kills, maybe because I'm uncomfortable with translating leads, I would just go for these really low probability ults, or I'll just waste my ult. Like, I had this very blasé mentality, and I wanted to show you guys what actually happens as a result. So here, I waste my ult, I miss it, and I go back to mid lane here, and now I'm screwed. Because look, now I'm versing a poke mage, I have no kill threat, he knows I don't have prowlers and ult, I get poked, I can't 100-0 anymore. If I had ultimate, I can literally just flash, ERQWQ, and he's just dead. But I don't have that kill threat anymore. You got to understand the consequences of wasting your ultimate. This is what I was saying before. I can't be afraid to use it, but at the same time, this is the consequences of my actions. Now, again, this is a classic hesitation. We've got a pick here. For some reason, I choose not to use my ultimate, and I just completely hold it for no reason, hesitate, and end up trading kills for no reason. I mean, if I had just instantaneously used it into this Morgana, this would have been completely free. And this is, again, one of those examples of holding or greening R that got me into trouble over and over again. Don't be afraid to use it. This was an example of me forgetting that the river R and the brush R exists. And this is, again, the consequences of forgetting that exists. It's like an early game 2v2. I kill the Mundo. And here I could have easily just pushed the LeBlanc forwards into the river rather than trying to get around the LeBlanc and, go next to her and push her into this wall. I completely forgot her existed. And then we end up... Kindred end up dying because of my incompetence here. It's these 2v2s that are going to win you the game as QIYANA, so you've got to be very, very careful and hold yourself to a high standard when it comes to these R usages. Just, again, a few of these painful experiences that I hope I can save you from at least doing as much as I did. So now what we're going to do is go through the top 6 common mistakes with examples. So diving straight in, the first one is rushing Q and not utilizing auto attacks. This is something I did time and time and time again. I just want to shoot my brains out how many times I actually made this mistake. So here, I'm going in with the Q, I select my W, and I just EQ instantly. I just don't use my auto attack. Here was an example. If I actually hold my auto attacks here, and I use auto, Q, ignite, Firecast's dead. There's no need to hold it. There's no need to rush it, Curtis. And this drove me insane. Really, really, really annoying. Here again, not utilizing... Okay, here, this is a perfect example of this problem and how it can actually manifest. Once you develop this bad habit, you'll actually miss kill opportunities because you don't understand how much damage your passive auto will do. So here, you'll actually see in a second, I can kill the Z. Neither of us have R. Okay? Keep that in mind. Neither of us have R. He uses his W onto me here, and then I EQ reactively onto him. And then here, I can literally W forwards over on the rock down there and chase him down with autos. Or force him at least to W back to them, which, then he's at Narnia and then I got full lane control. So here, my default response is to do the combo that I mentioned earlier on, which is the EQ, W, fade away Q, which is good as a short trade. And it's good if I can't take the extended trade. But if I was switched on and realized that I can actually utilize my passive autos to chase him down, this Z is literally dead. And you'll see Beifeng, he's excellent at abusing his kill threat. And this is a perfect example. Here is a example where he's playing QIYANA into Fizz. And look at this. Auto, Q, then he goes onto him, and E's just auto, Q, auto. Just auto him to death, and I just never would have gone for a play like this onto the Fizz. I just would have bitched it, gone for the short trade, fade away, EQWQ. Very, very big mistake. I need you guys to be on top of early on in your QIYANA journey, not like me. Second one here is not utilizing grass Q, leaving yourself exposed, especially in these very auto attack centric matchups versus Yone, Yasuo, etc. Here's an example of me early on in my QIYANA journey where I look at that. I go EQ and I take like an earth element and just leave myself exposed and take a terrible trade. It happens time and time again. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Again, I had no one guiding me really. I'm just kind of feeling stuff out, and this really gave me some terribly awful experiences early on in my journey. Another one here, oh, by the way, just before we move on for this, what I would do in hindsight if I were to replay this again is I would sit in my grass queue and then pick another grass queue and then just chill. Just chill, auto attack Q, disengage, and constantly make this guy confused with nice little short trades in the grass queue. And the third most common mistake here is using Prowlers too early in my learning journey. This is one of my earlier games, like, first 10 games I've ever played with QIYANA in the past year and a half or something like that. And I'm just whiffing abilities. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm telling you right now, pretend the active doesn't exist for the first 30 games. Don't worry about it. Leave it. Leave it to the side. It's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother element of QIYANA that you can worry about later on. It's not that important anymore because before, when you could use it off minions, sure, it completely changed the amount of kill threat QIYANA had on targets because it was like another gap closing tool. But now, look, it's just for added extra damage, a little bit of extra, gap closing potential. It's not that important. So don't worry about it early on in your journey. Next one here is not factoring in flash and gap closes. So here, for example, we're in a mid to late game team fight. I go into the back line, they flash, I'm completely exposed, and I just die. This was happening time and time again. Same thing here. I go into the Tryndamere, use my ultimate, he just ease away, boom. Very simple mistake, but it can really cost you. This is a big one as well in the early lane. If you're sitting on Earth Element, you can actually ruin your ability to all in. So a lot of the times in the early lane, my default response is just sit on Earth Element like this and grab another Earth Element. And if I grab another Earth Element, I have to wait an entire 6 seconds before I can do anything again because Earth Element, when they're full HP, does jack shit. So a bad habit I had early on in my journey was just constantly grabbing Earth Element just because it was convenient, because it was right next to me. I don't know. So one thing I want you guys to really actively think about is, okay, how can I grab grass? Can I grab water? Is there any way of me getting them rather than defaulting to Earth? That way you're going to have a little bit more flexibility with your trades, a little bit more utility, and also you're not going to be stacking that Earth Element passive over and over again, just like I do. Here was a perfect example where I just grabbed Earth Element, nothing I could do. Now, this was another big problem. This is what I call team fight analysis paralysis. It's a potential team fight going on here. I'm a little bit overwhelmed mentally. I'm early on in my QIYANA journey, and I end up not really making any decision. I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? Do I not go in? Do I go in? And I kind of half-ass. I'm like, should I go? Should I not? I'm walking to the side, and then I don't want to go, and I throw a grass queue, and I kind of finally go in, but I completely whiff all of my abilities and lose. And the thing is, in situations like this, guys, you're not going to know how to approach a team fight like this early on in your journey. So just make a decision, whether it's going balls to the wall, whether it's super conservative, pick one of the decisions. By dicking around and not making a decision and just purely compensating on the back end, you don't learn jack shit. Remember, our focus point is becoming the best QIYANA player we can over the course of 200 games. It's not about this one game. It's about your learning in the long term, and it's something that you've really got to force as a mindset, because compensation Rs in these team fights, you're getting very little learning, because you even feel it when you're doing it. You're like, oh, this is not me. Why am I doing? Just chill, Curtis. It hurts. It really, really does hurt. So here, guys, I want to talk about the QIYANA Formula One mindset, okay? And for those of you who have watched Formula One, you're probably very familiar with this, but every little small detail matters. Just like every millisecond or split second in F1 matters, because that's what wins you races in F1. So every single missed auto attack, every single missed combo, incorrectly timed prowlers, incorrectly angled ultimate, wrong element, all of these small details add up to make QIYANA what the champion is. Now, this can feel very overwhelming. You can get very frustrated, you can get very anxious, and to be honest with you, this was my default response when I was learning QIYANA. I was overwhelmed, and even to this day, to be honest with you, I still kind of get this, but what's really helping me in the long run is owning it. This is what makes QIYANA fun. If QIYANA was a really simple, straightforward champion that anyone could play and everyone could get the max value out of the kit, do you think we would see someone like the likes of Beifeng? Probably not. Do you think many people would play QIYANA? Maybe, but would the champion be as cool as it is now? Probably not. So own it. This is what makes the champion fun. You're a craftsman trying to figure out how to get juice the max value out of the kit, just like a driver is trying to juice the max value out of a car. Right? This is what makes the champion fun. Slowly aiming to become this well-oiled machine where you know exactly what to do. Now, what I want to show you guys here is an example of a play where if I was more confident in the speed of my combo, then I would be able to do it. So this is actually a clip here where I'm playing QIYANA into Talon. And I remember distinctively in my mind thinking to myself, if I was Beifeng, I would be able to do this. And tying back to the F1, it's like, if I was Max Verstappen or, one of these crazy drivers or, Lewis Hamilton, I would be able to do this, but not. I'm some shitty driver in the back of the grid here. For those of you who don't watch F1, probably don't get it. But here, for example, I remember I was taking a really good trade here. I grabbed my water element and I was thinking, okay, as soon as my W comes back, there might be a little window where I can go for a flash EQ WQ trade straight onto this Talon. And I'm waiting for my W to come back up. Boom, boom, boom. And there's a split second here where I could have EQ, or flash EQ, WQ, instantly kill the Talon, but I hesitate that split second, and I miss that opportunity, and then Talon heals too much with the pots, and he just gets too healthy, and he's not in kill threat range anymore. Just like that. Split second. Gone. And that can be the difference between winning and losing a game with QIYANA, and that's one of my biggest takeaways, actually, from watching a lot of Bayfeng. I watch his VODs, I'm like, what the hell? Why are you doing these things that I can't do? But just own it. You're not going to be Bayfeng after 100 games. It's going to take you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. So winning games with QIYANA, a common problem we all have as QIYANA players is, I get a few kills, I start the game as 2-0, but I still lose the game. Now, there's many reasons for this, but what makes QIYANA hard as a champion isn't getting solo kills, isn't getting 2-0, 3-0. For whatever reason, it's actually just exploding the Nexus. And, when I tell people, I think that QIYANA is probably one of the hardest champions in the game, it's not because, and people say, what the hell, what do you mean? It's so easy. Like, how can you not play QIYANA? Well, people realize that what makes a champion hard isn't just getting kills, right? Anyone can get kills with QIYANA. You just press, QWER, whatever it is, kill someone. But winning the game is a whole different ballgame, especially as you get to, like, Master Plus. It's really bloody hard. So this is where win condition assessment really comes into play, and you can only really begin to refine this skill 70 plus games into your journey. Before that, your mental stack's going to be so overwhelmed, there's no point even thinking about it. So what we're going to do is going to take a look at two different examples of where win con assessment really comes into play. So this is first example, this is of actually one of my mid lane academy members here playing QIYANA, and he shoves the wave into the Diana. He's 1-1-2, relatively close game, but I believe his bot lane was doing well and his top lane was doing poorly. And then he sees this Tryndamere overextended, so he commits to this roam top side, goes for this kill onto the Tryndamere, and comes back mid. But as a result, because you've committed to top side, the enemy mid lane is going to get shot off the wave, and then they're able to do something on the other side of the map. So, she comes back mid here. And, it looks all good. You go top, you help your team secure a kill, you get an assist or whatever it might be. You shove, and then you're like, oh shit, wait. Because I went for that top play, my bot lane just got left exposed, and my bot lane just got double killed. And I remember reviewing this game with him, and we said, look, this is the reason you lost. There was a lot of things you could have done this game, but you incorrectly identified the win condition. Your win condition wasn't killing this Tryndamere. Your Camille was losing anyway. These guys were your win con. What you actually had to do here was defend your bot lane. Leave them. They don't even need you, but even if Tryndamere escaped, it wouldn't even matter. Defend your bot lane instead because they are your win condition. Now, this is really weird for people to conceptualize because like, but I did nothing wrong. Like, I went top, I got a kill, blah, 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 blah. But I still lost the game. This is where you got to play devil's advocate with your decision. Like, did I play in accordance to the win condition, what I perceive to be the win condition? And again, this isn't something you can focus on early on in your journey. This is something you're only going to realize as you get a lot of champion mastery. Like, I need someone else to be fed on my team. Especially in comps like this where, you've got pretty much a full AD comp. Camille's not going to carry against that Tryndamere. There's no way. He's going to slowly lose. You need to identify the members that can actually carry the game. This is an example of myself. I was actually versing a GP mid. And, I got really far ahead. And, I didn't realize at the time, but I thought I was going all good. I was directing all of my attention, like holding the wave on my side. How do I dominate my opponent? Later on, I think I end up getting ganked. We turn the gank around onto the enemy Echo jungle, kill the Echo here. I'm thinking, wow, this is just going to be a really clean QIYANA game. And then we end up like going mid, denying this GP shit ton of farm. The enemy Tristana mid comes as well. We get all these kills, and I'm thinking to myself, great, this is awesome. Me and this Viagra here are getting really fed, but we end up losing the game. And I remember thinking to myself, what? Why am I 2-0-2 dominating my opponent and still losing the game? Well, what happened is that me and the Viagra can't carry this game against their comp. Their comp directly counters me. Fiora, pain in the ass. Lulu Tristana, pain in the ass. GP is always going to be able to minimize soon with the bone plating. GP is just good into QIYANA in general. Echo even kind of annoying in the jungle as well. And what ended up happening is that my bot lane started losing, my top lane started losing, and then I'm left being fed, not knowing what the hell to do, and we ended up slowly bleeding out. And I remember thinking to myself, Curtis, well, if I were to win this game, what I should have done is recognize that after I'd already gotten ahead, and killed this GP twice, instead of holding the wave on my side, what I had to do was play for Prior instead and influence my side lanes more. Go top, kill this Fiora, get my Camille snowballing, or snowball my bot lane because they weren't actually winning the 2v2. I had to do something else. But again, this doesn't tie into... This is not really a question of me misplaying mechanically or failing a dive or anything. It's simply I didn't direct my attention in the correct areas. I didn't correctly assess how to kill the Nexus, essentially. Because in League, guys, there are many, many ways to win a game. I can sit here trying to dominate my opponent, getting 3-0, or 4-0, or 5-0, but that might work some games where I have winning sides and have plenty of AP on my team, we scale well, but other games, that won't be the case. Other games, I've got like a lot of AD, my Tali here is, pretty dog shit into their comp, and, both my sides were losing. I can't carry. QIYANA's not a carry in this comp. QIYANA can carry in certain comps, but not in this comp. So this is, again, where win con assessment, having a hypothesis really pays dividends in the long run. You must go back at the key pivotal moments in your replay and play devil's advocate and look at the alternative options in terms of where you can exert your pressure. Because QIYANA can do a hell of a lot of things, whether it's invade, look for your creative jungle pick, dive aside, hover aside. I can do a lot of things, but you got to pick the right one in order to win the game. So if you guys are struggling with roaming, here are some tips for you guys to get more effective roams or see more opportunities. The first one is camera pan, right? You've got to be actively camera panning to side lanes to soak in more information about what's happening with the wave states, what's happening with the trading patterns. Camera panning is at the foundation or the crux of actually getting any good quality roam off. I would actively recommend that you guys refer back to the roaming video I've done on my channel. I think it's like a mid lane fundamentals video. I cover that a lot. A lot of great stuff in that video. Second one is tempo resetting. We're going to look at a video in a second that really shows what tempo resetting looks like. This is probably the biggest mistake that I see when I review QIYANA players is that they kind of try to play this perfect game of League of Legends where they just want to play as if they're playing a control mage, where they just want to play like 10 CS per minute, right? They're just going to try and look for that perfect reset. They don't want to lose any farm. And then what happens, they slowly just kind of lose because they're never generating a roam opportunity. So what you'll see in the video in a second is that it's okay to go down CS or farm or take an inefficient recall in order to get back onto the map, in order to get something done. This is especially relevant when you're getting counterpicked. Anticipating action in advance with loading screen lull state usage. So people all the time, they say, how could I have anticipated the fact that this top matchup was going to go like this? Or how could I have anticipated that there was something going to happen topside? A lot of the time, if you're actively utilizing your lull states, whether it's the miniature lull states in the lane phase, in between the waves, or coming out of base, whatever it might be, you can actually see the tendencies in the game thus far, right? So for example, if you see that it's like a heavy trading melee versus melee matchup, you'll be able to see that across the entirety of the game. It won't just randomly be heavy trading. You will see that earlier on in the game. And if you see if it's like back and forth, well, chances are that it's going to continue to be back and forth, and you might be the person to be able to swing that, or that's where you might want to direct most of your attention. And as you get better and understand matchups more in the loading screen, you can be like, well, I know this bot matchup is actually going to be very chaotic. We've got like Leona versus a Thresh or whatever it might be. There's a lot of gank setup, or maybe it's a Thresh into a Lulu or a Blitz into a Soraka. There's a lot of kill threat here. I should probably go down there because chances are if I hover there, something might actually happen. And then, you want to be actively looking to cater your trades for if you are playing for the 2v2 mid or roams. Now, this is something that I'd never really thought about. If you think back to that GP example in the previous slide where when I was talking about win conditions, right, and win con assessment. If I were playing for the 1v1 with the GP, what would you assume that I would do in terms of my trades? Well, you would probably assume that I'm going to heavy trade. And heavy trading would make sense for me because I want to get the GP low, I want to get them in kill threat range, I want to go for those solo kills. But if I were playing for roams, that wouldn't really make much sense, would it? I wouldn't want to take those heavy trades with the GP because I just want to shove and move, in which I would actively cater my trading patterns or cater the way I use my abilities on the wave differently in order for me to maximize my strategy. So if I'm playing for shove and move in roams, I'm not going to heavy trade and try to use all my abilities on the GP. No, I'm going to use my abilities on the wave, play for shove, and actively roam. I'm going to stay healthy. So this is something you really need to keep in mind. This is why you've got to be actively thinking, well, if my win con is X, how does this affect my trading patterns and how healthy I want to stay in the lane? This is something that, is really kind of bitten me in the ass. But let's actually go over an example here of what tempo resetting looks like. This is actually an example from Beifeng. I think it was when he was versing Doinby or something. And he, I think he's versing like Yone. Yeah, and Yone has really, really good wave clear. And what happens here, instead of like staying in the lane, and obviously this is a pretty stock standard tempo reset whereby it's on a cannon, so he's not really going to lose much. But you'll see Beifeng and a lot of great QIYANA players even do this when it's not on a cannon, just because they know they're desperate and they need to get back onto the map and they want to get something happening. So he resets, comes back. Yone inevitably has to reset because he doesn't want to be at a man disadvantage. Now he's got his double longsword. He's able to create a little window. Boom, boom, boom. Gets the wave, and then look what he does. Because he's created this little bit of tempo, yes, at the sacrifice of farm, so be it. He's able to go and commit to a roam bot side. And then, now he's bot. Yone's only now reaching back to mid lane, and he's able to pick up a nice little kill on the Ezreal in bot lane. And this is a very stock standard example of what a tempo reset does. Sometimes you would go for a tempo reset and it won't get you jack shit. Other times you'll go for a tempo reset and it will lead to a kill. This is where, again, experience with the comps, lull state assessment, loading screen assessment, camera panning assessment, all this stuff really comes into play. But this is something that I would urge you to experiment with in those games where you feel like you're locked in a lane, you don't scale, and you really need to get something happening. Now, I'm going to save you the pain, guys, and give you a bit of a rundown on the abilities that reveal you in your grass queue. Now, I've spoken a lot in this guide about the importance of utilizing your stealth, your visibility, whatever you want to call it, in fights, whether it's team fights, whether it's in lane for creating space, whatever it might be. Unfortunately, there are a lot of abilities in the game that can reveal you. Now, here are a list of the key abilities that will reveal you throughout your stealth. And the bottom ones are ones that I have yet to test and I don't actively know if they do or don't. So if you guys have any idea in the comments, just drop that in the comment section below. But shout out to Josh and guys at the Midland Academy for helping me put this one together. I mean, this is, I can't stress enough how many painful experiences I've had because I've thought about, okay, I can go in, I can create space with my stealth. One of these abilities hit me, and then I'm completely screwed. Some really annoying ones here. Lee Sin QE, we see Lee all the time. This is why Lee is such a pain in the ass to verse. I'm stepping on a Nidalee trap. I mean, I think some other obvious ones here. I think Twisted Fate R is a really, really annoying one. Karma W. People try to tell me that Karma Mid is not a counter to QIYANA. I don't want to say the word, get screwed, because at the end of the day, if the QIYANA plays airy, plays for lane domination, takes exhaust, takes secondary resolve, and actually utilizes the W effectively, it's so hard. So, I mean, these are the key ones, but obviously, these are all worth considering. And Rengar as well. I mean, I'm sick of Rengar, honestly. These are the champs that really do my head in. So, keep an eye out for these abilities when you're playing QIYANA in the loading screen. Now, given most QIYANA games are decided by the quality of your first 8 minutes, understanding the matchup and the specifics and the details will massively dictate the amount of success you will have with QIYANA, okay? This seems pretty straightforward and obvious, but people kind of skip over the details. So instead of going into every single matchup and being, okay, here we go, here's how you play QIYANA into Yasuo, here's how you play QIYANA into LeBlanc, here's how you play QIYANA into Ryze. No, I can't do that. It's going to take hours and hours and hours and hours. I'm going to give you guys a bit of a process of what I've been doing myself to really refine my ability to understand the matchup specifics. And this is a very short, sharp, simple process. Number one, have an initial hypothesis about what you want to do with the early wave, whether it's respect levels 1 and 2, or you want to contest level 1 and 2, etc., play off the bounced wave, what you want the trading patterns to be. Get very specific. Do you want to use your W reactively to avoid a skill shot? Do you want to take extended long trades down the long lane, make it very chaotic? Or maybe you can't do that. Maybe versus Yasuo, you have to just chill and relax and actually wait till level 6. Get as specific as you possibly can with your current assessment of the matchup. Now, watch your VOD immediately after and pinpoint some things that felt good or bad. Like, okay, this trade was actually okay. This one felt terrible. I felt really stuck here. Just get very specific. Then go onto YouTube, find the exact same matchup. You might have to watch 2 or 3 because there's a lot of shitty VODs on YouTube. And, just watch the first 6 minutes and get specific about what made the trade good. What made the trade poor? Look at the element usage. Look at the lane pace. Look at the wave management. Did they contest level 1 or give level 1? Look at the trading patterns. Look at the resets. Look at all of these things. And as you'll start to, as you start to watch these VODs, the trends and the information will start to become clear to you. I cannot stress enough how important this process is, especially as you get past like 30 to 40 games of QIYANA and you've got the combos down pat. Matchup specifics is what allows you to climb reliably with QIYANA. And one little thing, guys, QIYANA actually gets easier the higher you get because junglers know how to really utilize your threat. So keep this in mind when you're watching Beifeng VODs and all these high elo Korean player VODs, because the junglers will actually influence the lanes a lot more. So you might have to adapt your play, maybe not trade as chaotic as you would otherwise, potentially because your jungler is just not going to capitalize on the heavy trading. If you look at any Beifeng VOD, the jungler's coming mid, level 3, level 4, basically on repeat. Again, take that with a grain of salt. Now, runes. Pretty stock standard stuff here, guys. For me personally, and again, this is a little bit controversial, I cannot stand secondary precision. I think I did it for my first 20 games or first 15 games. I hate it. Yes, it scales better. Yes, it makes your mid game a little bit easier because presence of mind, after you get a kill, you don't have to instantly reset all the time. And yes, the extra damage you get from last stand and coup de grace can be quite nice in heavy trading matchups. These very close, tight-knit matchups. But for me, the flexibility you get from biscuits, just in terms of resource management and minimizing those really hard matchups, I just love it. It's just a feel thing. So I would urge you to experiment with both secondary inspiration and secondary precision. Yes, you can go Triumph. You can go Legend Tenacity in some games with heavy CC. But in my mind, if you're getting hard CC by a lot of these comps, you're probably just dead anyway. A little bit of Tenacity is not really going to do anything because you're so squishy regardless. So for me, I all in this. I love Cosmic Insight because I think Flash and your summoners are so important. And so it's just preference. I also love Ravenous Hunter. I think that especially in the mid game, it allows you to sell your pots and free up that space in your inventory, which I value really highly. And the healing you get in the side lane is actually quite surprising. Yes, you can go Ultimate Hunter or even Relentless Hunter, but at the end of the day, it's preference. I just prefer Ravenous. I would urge you to experiment with all of them. This is definitely the easiest to execute rune page and the one that I would recommend you starting with. And then as you get 30, 40 games in, you can start experimenting with the other ones and then, branch off. Now for build and summoners, guys, this is actually based off patch 11.16. The main change in patch 11.17 is that I think Serpent's got a nerf in lethality, in which I think as a result of this, what's going to happen is that we're going to see more maybe Ghostblade second, because Ghostblade got a buff as well. So what we're probably going to see is Prowlers into Ghostblade, but I still think Serpent's Fang will be good, but it's just more of a situational item. So what we'll see is, Prowlers into Ghostblade as your default, and then Serpents if they have shield bows and things like that. So keep that in mind as you're itemizing, in patch 11.17. But pretty stock standard build path. You want to start longsword, you can start refillable or 3 pots. For me personally, I go refillable 95% of the time. 3 pots is good when you're versing a really hard matchup. So if you're versing like LeBlancs, you're versing Lucian, some of these really annoying poke-oriented early bully matchups, the extra durability and the sustain you get with this can actually allow you to have a bit more freedom, especially in combination with pots. I would again urge you to experiment with both, but refillable, it's more than fine. But your goal in the early lane, guys, is to get to 750 gold to get this this Dirk here. This is your first core item. Now, a lot of people ask about tier. I am anti-tier. I hate tier. Me, personally, I can't stand it. It is largely preferential. I found that in my games, it delays your power spike too much, and the early damage that you miss from going this item is just... It just doesn't make sense to me, because with QIYANA, like I said, the first 8 minutes of the game are so important, and if you're just kind of going even and scaling a lot of the time as QIYANA, unless you have a lot of AP on your comp, it's just unnecessary. So yes, in those very slow-paced QIYANA games, you can go tier, but for me personally, I'm like, screw it, I get enough mana with my biscuits and things like that, and my resets, so I avoid it and just skip mana mood completely and just go straight in from Dirk, into my tier 2 boots, into my Prowlers, Serpents, Cerilthas, and then so on and so forth. Pretty stock standard. Again, I would urge you to experiment with both to see what feels best for you in your rank in the differing sorts of game paces. Ideally, you're swapping to Sweeper very early on. I swap it as soon as I get Dirk, purely because I'm going to be largely sweeping, creating gank threat. trying to roam and get stuff done. But in a lot of the time, if you're holding onto grass, you probably can't get ganked anyway. Something to keep in mind. And then always Flash Ignites, all right? Pretty stock standard. I don't think there's anything too fancy going on here. Now, for jungle picks that complement QIYANA, draft is very important as QIYANA. You can get counterpicked in mid lane as long as you have heavy AP from the jungle. It doesn't really matter. So you can, if you see like you've got any of these champions on your team, I mean, the best ones I think are Elise, Diana. I mean, these are the bangers. I mean, these also work, but I love these four personally just because they're just so reliable. I don't like relying on an AP carry in the bot lane. If I see myself have triple AD topside, say I have like a Set top or Aurelia top with like a Lee Sin and then QIYANA topside, but I have like a Ziggs bot, in my mind, it's just not enough because their topside will get a Tarbies and it's just too hard to deal with. So personally, I really like to have an AP somewhere on the topside, ideally in the jungle. So don't worry about getting counterpicked as long as you have an AP jungle. There's going to be way too much threat for them to deal with. These are the picks that I urge you to look out for in the draft. These are the champs that give you the most trouble. The ones in red are the ones that, for me, I personally can't stand. I ban Ezreal all the time. I think it's a pain in the ass. Just builds armor later on into the game, especially into those heavy AD comps with the Frozen Heart, and mobility makes it hard for you to land your combo. Mordekaiser's just going to stalk you in fights and rip you out of the fight with the R. Lee Sin, Rengar for obvious reasons. Rengar gets rid of the CC and the ult reveals you. Lee Sin, both the E and the Q reveal you and kick you out of fights. Xin Zhao creates space, but these two are the really, really annoying ones. Same thing, hard CC, lockdown, absolute pain in the ass to deal with here. Moving on to the matchup tier list. Now, one thing before you pause and be like, oh my god, Curtis is right, he's wrong here, blah, 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 blah. Tier lists are pretty useless with QIYANA at the end of the day because QIYANA is the sort of champion that she's not picked for the 1v1. As you can see, there's not actually many favorable matchups. And the reason this is the case is because every matchup is swung when you have a high pressure AP jungler. Any of these matchups in D tier and C tier, if you're paired with an Elise, I don't give a shit. Because your threat is just too high. They can't deal with the amount of gap closing threat that you have post 6. So take this with a grain of salt. This is just my experience, what I found. So starting from the top, we have the terrible matchups all the way down to A tier, which are good. And then we have situational and then unsure. I don't have enough data. I haven't versed them enough, so I can't really comment. So I've got LeBlanc highlighted in red. I think LeBlanc right now is probably the hardest mid laner to verse at the moment, if played well. Some people beg to differ in lower elo whether LeBlanc's a dog shit. Sure, I get it. But in high elo, this is borderline unplayable, especially if the enemy jungler comes around mid, because LeBlanc's going to shove you in, bounce the wave, chase you down the long lane, set up a gank, you're screwed. Other notable mentions here, I mean, Silas is a hard matchup, but I think that there is room to get stuff done levels 1 to 6, so hence why I think it is C. It is like a C tier matchup. We have some spicy skill matchups. B tier, slightly good. If you have any questions about this stuff, look, I'll try and go through the comments and answer questions. At the end of the day, you guys are going to have your own hypotheses based off your own experiences at your own rank. So take this with a grain of salt. Now, these are the things that I don't teach in this guide. I'm not going to be, covering the super advanced QIYANA micro tips. I don't have Beifeng level micro, so I can't teach that. I'm not going to teach fast combos because I don't even really believe it can be taught. I'm not going to talk about unique itemization, rune setup summoners. I'm not talking about TP, Conqueror, Eclipse, all that nonsense. I like QIYANA to be a very stock, give her a clear identity. I'm not a QIYANA one trick, so I'm not going to comment on that. If you want to learn more about that stuff, I'm going to go over other resources that you can research if you're interested. I'm not actually covering the matchups where you can dodge damage with E. So, for example, when you're playing QIYANA into LB, if you time your E properly, you can actually avoid the W damage. E start matchups versus Zillion, you can actually start E, stuff like that. And using E over certain jungle camps and champions to go over walls when you're trying to escape. You can actually use E over blue buff, Krugs, etc., etc. Now, how to learn QIYANA, guys? Pretty straightforward. First 30 games, you want to limit test as much as possible. Get comfortable with your grass queue. Feel out its survivability, its utility. You want to go through and be able to do the basic trading combos, basic all-in combos relatively confidently, tying back to the drills and the stuff that I covered at the beginning of this guide. And feel out both the slow and farm QIYANA. Don't just tunnel in on playing the really, really fast-paced QIYANA or the really, really slow QIYANA, do what I said before in terms of using your ultimate. Go to the extreme and then go to the other extreme. That way you're going to find the balance a lot faster. 30 to 70 games in, this is where you're going to laser focus on matchups, compartmentalizing matchups. 90 to 95% of your focus is going to go on matchup specifics. So that's where you're following that process that I mentioned earlier on in the guide. And then you start to dabble in skirmish optimization, looking for pre-fight positioning, target selection, speed of the combo. This is where I would actively watch as many team fights and skirmishes as possible in queue. Okay, while you're in queue, just watch really good QIYANA players, watch their team fights, watch their skirmishes. Even if you're autopilot watching, some information will sink in. This is pretty simple, 30 to 70. This is where you're going to spend most of your time. It's going to be quite miserable. Then, as you get to 70 plus games, this is where you can start to finally look for those creative playmakes in the jungle, hovering side lanes, going for creative roams. Get very specific about small matchup details. Look for those creative roam windows. Maximizing damage output. Be like, okay, I probably could have autoed here. Got an extra element. Probably use my element differently here. Just looking at the very, very small details. And then, again, weighing up the value of roam kills in plays. Like I said earlier in the guide, in terms of assessing win conditions, just because you go for a successful roam on one side doesn't mean that's good for the grand scheme of winning the game. Again, anyone can roam and kill someone with QIYANA, but doing it in a way that wins the game is a whole different ball game. So unfortunately, guys, I'm not going to be covering countering QIYANA today because I think there is so much to this. There is so many little small details. I think it warrants its own video, just like I've done with how to counter Z, etc. So I will do this in that other series later on when I get a little bit more time. So QIYANA goals, you need to be realistic about your QIYANA goals. And I think I've had this reality check myself. You're not going to get to Beifeng level in 200, 300, or even 400 games. It's going to take hundreds or even like thousands of games. He is an exception. Like, he is this like god. Like, when you start to play QIYANA, you will realize how good he really is. There's a reason why he's rank 1 in China, essentially. So please be realistic about your QIYANA goals. Just start small. Whether it's, okay, I just want to have a solid first 8 minutes, or I want to know how to approach every single skirmish, or I want to get to every objective early, or I want to perfect my levels or pre-first base even. Start with, I just want to have a really good levels 1 to 4. Start very, very small, and you'll build up as you get more comfortable with your matchup understanding, you get more comfortable with your combos and your laning. You'll slowly add a little bit more to your arsenal. Take your time. Don't rush it. Don't go from 0 to 100. And like I said many times with this guide, guys, QIYANA is an extremely unforgiving champion. One little slip up, once you're behind the curve, you don't exert the same amount of threat, you become very useless very quick, okay? Like I said, the Formula 1 mindset, the small details add up over time. That missed auto attack, that missed trading window means you don't get the solo kill, which means you slowly lose the lane, you get behind the curve, you don't have threat, you can't one-shot them anymore. It turns into a crazy downhill tunnel very, very fast. So keep this in mind. Don't set your expectations too high when you're starting off on your QIYANA journey. Now, I want to shout out, there's actually another YouTuber. I think he's the NA Challenger QIYANA One Trick. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Shocks. He's an example of a player that is not nearly as good mechanically as Beifeng, but is still really, really good. Don't get me wrong. He's a really, really good QIYANA. But he still gets amazing results in NA solo queue, right? I think he's like 800 LP Challenger or 1K LP Challenger. He's a really great player. But even you look at him and look at Beifeng, it's like, holy shit. Like, this guy... I mean, Beifeng just looks like it doesn't even look like he's on the same playing field. It's like a whole different ball game. So shout out to Shocks, guys. If you want other content, for those of you who are trying to learn and get more information on QIYANA, highly recommend you check out his channel. I've never spoken to him before. He probably doesn't even know who I am. But yeah, he has really good content. He gets into the details and actually plays high elo games with QIYANA, which is actually really hard to find as a content creator. So shout out to that dude. Wonder if he might watch this guide, who knows, but highly recommend his channel. He has a lot of great stuff. Other notable resources, Beifeng stream, I'll chuck that in the section below. There's a QIYANA player stream, I'll chuck that in the description below. And also just watching highlight montages to see other perspectives of how people play skirmishes and team fights. It's very, very valuable. So what we're going to do, guys, is go over 2 differing VODs of mine, one of which is of a really hard matchup where I get completely dominated, I lose my mid-tier 1, I get rift heralded. Like, the entire game's a disaster, but I think it really highlights how to kind of play from behind, look for creative opportunities, get back into the game, and it kind of shows a lot of the QIYANA fundamentals. It's ugly, but I think it's a realistic game of what you'll experience. And another game where I was playing on my main account, and It was like a really, I guess, chaotic game that I think I played pretty well. I made some mistakes, but I think highlights a lot of the QIYANA fundamentals as well. So one melee, one ranged, and then we're also going to go over one of Beifeng's recent games, which I thought again encapsulates a lot of the QIYANA details here. QIYANA versus Yone when he's versing Doinby. So we're going to go over all of these. Kind of try and tie back to the stuff we covered in this guide and wrap it all up nicely before we get into the community Q&A. So in this first game, this is a perfect example of what happens if you kind of get left by yourself on an island, ignored, and just lose your towers. And I wanted to show this. Yes, it's not sexy, and it's miserable and it's a bit of a painful experience, but I think it's realistic. I think this is what is likely going to happen in a lot of your games, guys, where, you expect that you're probably going to get some ganks or maybe you just get counterpicked in the draft, you get left alone, you're slowly going to lose. This happens. It's a reality of playing a champion like QIYANA, especially in the lower elos when you're in diamond here. So, or even below that, platinum and gold, it's going to happen. So, let's dive in. And I by no means play this game perfectly, so I'm going to call my own mistakes out and look at what I should have done better as well. So I'm versing a Scion mid here with Grasp. I think I was versing a Karthus as well. And because this is a matchup where I can actually kind of contest level 1, and I think Sion's actually very vulnerable, like levels 1, 2, and 3, I started W, and I used my W to actually avoid the skill shot and try and get the shove here and try and get that level 2. So here I take the auto attack trade. Unfortunately, I don't have access to both elements there because I was sitting on an earth element already. Again, I'm taking these auto trades because, again, my autos level 1 are very, very strong. And I know that Scion doesn't really have much durability yet because he hasn't stacked his passive. So I'm really trying to contest level 1, get the level 2 first, because I know that I can probably get something done levels 2 and 3 here. I just use the earth element there to poke. It's because I'm going to swap elements anyway. Again, poking from a distance with my elements, trying to get another element so I don't get grass Q again, trying to posture up aggressively, utilize my auto attacks as much as possible. He goes for an all-in onto me, but I know that he can't kill me. I grab another grass element, and as you can see, this is chaos. I'm creating chaos, and I create chaos in these matchups where I know that I can really get something done, levels 3, 4, and stuff like that. So I start to get the wave in. I know that I can probably go for a dive here if I can get the wave in. He's trying to thin the wave, but he can't really thin that effectively. Trying to get the wave in here, knowing that I could probably get a dive here. Trying to get a little bit of poke off with the QWQ combo. Get him as low as possible. Proc that bone plating before my dive actually goes through as well. Good, good, good. Get another element. I want to start this dive with either ice or, water or grass so I can actually get the double element proc. Good, good, good. Shove. He disrespects me. Boom. Fade away Q. So that was a classic, EQ, auto, WQ, boom. Lovely. Great little levels 1 to 3. And this is something you can do in these melee matchups. This is very different to the way like a Yone or a Yasuo matchup would go versus Yasuo and Yone. You'd probably respect levels 1 to 3 and kind of catch waves onto tower. But in some of these more easier levels 1 to 3 melee matchups, you're going to be able to get a pretty reliable solo kill. So ends up working pretty well. Go back for my Dirk, fast forwarding a little bit, come back. He ends up rushing a cloth armor. Now this is where things start to get messy and I already start to mess up here. So I saw Fiddle walk up into the river. So I was thinking to myself, well, great. They're not contesting that scuttle. I can actually heavy trade here knowing the wave's coming back to me and then Fiddle can actually gank on the way through. So right now I'm tunneled directly onto this Scion. And I thought that Fiddle was coming, so I'd go for some heavy trade, try to bait this guy in. But then I didn't realize that Karthus was actually finding the Fiddle, and then I got stuck in the middle of a wave here and ended up having to blow my flash. So a bit unfortunate there that my trade coincided with him getting met on the scuttle. And now I've lost basically both of my pots already. And this is where the game starts to go downhill very fast. So now I'm kind of stuck. I'm half HP. Basically lost most of my pots here. My Fiddle's behind. And the game starts to go disastrously. So right now I'm trying to prevent him from getting as much damage onto my tower as possible. But as you can see, it's already really, really hard. I get nailed by a bunch of abilities. This is a reality, guys. This happens. I take a few bad trades, like I said. I get too low. And being low as QIYANA, especially when I haven't taken their HP and he has the sustained advantage with the Corrupting Pod, I am now up shit creek. So fast forwarding a little bit, I just want to kind of speed through this because it's pretty non-interactive for a little bit. I reset on a cannon, doing that tempo reset thing that I spoke about earlier on in the guide, knowing that I want to get healthy again. I can't stay low in lane as QIYANA, otherwise I can't do jack shit. So I come back, boom, 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 shove, and look, with my little bit of tempo, look what I do. Because I got that tempo, I come back, I'm able to look for a roam. And this is how you create those roam windows. So I look for a bit of a roam here. I roam topside. I take the water element because I can walk faster through the river here. Good, good, good. And water element's also quite good for setting up ganks. Then he kind of like, he kind of goes a little bit early. I think I had to wait for this next wave to crash, so we end up not getting it. I feel like that could have worked if we executed it better. So I end up walking mid, miss a few creeps, but I think it was worth going for that attempt there. So now, because I don't really understand this matchup in depth, and I was still in the mindset where I could maybe like win trades, I thought that there I would be able to create enough space with my W and avoid the slow such that he wouldn't really be able to trade on the back end. So I still wanted to create chaos because in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I get him low, like, you know, Fiddle at 6 can probably get something done knowing that Fiddle's going to hit 6 off that blue buff. So I take these trades, but they end up really, really hurting me. Now, this is one thing I probably should have mentioned in the guide. Actually, I know I kind of did. Remember what I spoke about? You got to know what you're trading for. So this kind of ties into the win con stuff, right? If I'm playing to minimize and play for a certain item or play for roams, I'm not going to heavy trade with the Scion. Why would I heavy trade into the Scion? I'm only going to heavy trade into the Scion and trade HP if I can either go for a solo kill or I know if I'm going to get a gank. Now, what I've done this game, what I failed to realize, because he got Tarbies, and I don't have my Prowlers yet, I don't have enough pen, me heavy trading actually just I screw myself. I dig myself a hole because now it's going to make it harder for me to CS. And if Fiddle doesn't come mid, I'm going to be screwed. So this would only be good if I knew that my jungle was going to come mid based off the tendencies of the game, or I trust my jungle or whatever, and I know that they've got the time and the freedom to do so, or if I know I can solo kill. So what happens, he ends up ganking top and I think dying and trading kills or whatever, which really isn't that good. My bot lane's starting to get dumpstered. And now I'm kind of stuck in an island. I'm getting choked out. I'm getting Karthus ulted. I'm trying to do my best to get something done, but as you can see, Scion is just using his shield. I can't really do jack shit. Take grass element again. I'm really trying to prevent him from using the what's it called, demolish on my tower. I'm trying to scare him off here. And what I was thinking of doing here was eating onto him, then R him into tower, but he's actually too far away, so I couldn't end up doing it. And what I realized in hindsight, that this trading doesn't make sense. I should realize, okay, Curtis, Fiddle doesn't evolt, he ganked top, I should slow down my trades, play conservatively, and chill and scale. That's it. That's the only thing I can do. All I'm doing right now by heavy trading is digging myself a deeper and deeper hole. Okay, so this is why it's very important to kind of know what your objective is in the lane phase. So I end up chilling here in lane for quite a while. I'm slowly getting choked out. It's becoming more miserable, more miserable, more miserable. So I end up going for a little bit of a tempo reset. Fiddle's forced to cover a wave here. I've only lost one plate, which is probably really good. And look, I don't even reset on a cannon. I'm just forced to reset. Look what I try to do here. Off my reset, I come back with a tempo and I try to get something done. Now, in my mind, bot lane was boomed. Bot lane was over. I thought that bot lane, I couldn't gank bot. I had no vision. There's no pink wards. There's nothing I can do. I know they're junglers somewhere bot side. I mean, at least that's what I thought in the game. So I decided to shove and then move top side. And what happens is that yes, this is kind of bad because I'm playing away from my jungler, but I thought that Riven was going to be my win con, but then Riven doesn't want to be played towards, so he ends up pinging back. But I'm like, what do I do? I can't go bot. There's vision all down the river. They're already taking really bad trades. I have a Shaco jungle. There's no ganks. I have a Shaco support. There's no gank setup, especially if Thresh is sitting behind with a lantern. There's nothing I can do. So there's nothing I can do there. So I end up just wasting my time. So this is worst case scenario. I don't go bot. I can't get a kill bot. I can't go top. I'm getting screwed in the isolated 1v1. It's just basically a nightmare. So then what happens, because my jungler shows bot, I think in a second, the Karthus ends up getting Rift Herald, or already has Rift Herald, I can't remember. Scion is slowly getting my tower. I'm getting desperate. I'm taking damage unnecessarily, which ties into that thing again, where I didn't know my identity. I mean, I can't stay healthy and play for roams. There's no point staying in lane and heavy trading because I'm not getting any jungle attention anyway. And this guy even built, I'm pretty sure he actually built lethality as well. He was actually relatively squishy, but but Fiddle didn't really recognize that. So again, why I'm showing you this, guys, is this is the sort of QIYANA game that you will have. You're going to have these miserable games. So at this point, I'm just chilling. Not really much I can do. And then Karthus comes by. Now, in my head right now, I thought we're just going to get outscaled. I just thought we're going to lose the game. I'm thinking to myself, well, Karthus is scaling up. Bot lane is losing. Malphite's going to get a shit ton of armor. We're slowly going to lose this game. So, I want to get something done. I want to try and do something. So, what I end up doing here is trying to trade my life. I saw him take tower aggro, so I kind of try to shove him into the tower and get something done. So I end up trading a kill here just because I thought that was coherent with pushing the pace of the game. My team tries to follow up on the back end, but they end up just dying to the Karthus anyway. I think Riven trying to gets a kill on the back end, but still not looking good. Now I come back, same thing, guys, shoving with my little bit of tempo, trying to find some little window to get something done. So with that little bit of reprieve by getting the wave out, I try to hover my bot lane this time because Riven doesn't want anything to happen top. Unfortunately, I get spotted by a Scry's Bloom. I have to come all the way back mid. So as you can see, I'm trying to get something done here, but I just can't. Now, Sion's actually got rushed to Serpent's Fang, which is very strange. My bot lane is still dying. I think Malphite TP's bot. And again, I'm feeling extremely flustered, so you'll see me in a second. I try to go for some strange little solo kill because this guy ends up taking way too much damage. I probably could have gone into way earlier than this, but I hesitated, and then this is the classic hesitation R. So in my guide, there was in the R usage tips, you know how we're talking about hesitation. Here in my mind, because I'm so mentally fucked, I'm thinking to myself, how do I win? I'm trying to, like, in my mind, how do I win this game? Should I try go for a solo kill? Should I hold my R for something else and just ditch waves and go top? What should I do? And what I do, because I'm overthinking stuff and I'm in my head, and this is again something you guys will probably experience, I hesitate and I miss the opportunity, and then I just miss the opportunity and miss my ultimate. But I end up getting frustrated. I'm like, screw it. I know you have no abilities, so I'm able to kind of, you know, outplay him a little bit there and get a kill and trade kills. But again, not really that optimal. So basically, worst case scenario, bot lane's losing. Riven's actually quite strong though. And I type in chat, Fiddle, you can kill Sion easily because I wanted him to come mid, but lane assignments, I think end up getting swapped very soon. I try to walk top to swap up their lane assignments, but Malphite one-man ults me, and then I'm getting further and further behind. Boom, one shot. Look at this. Just getting caught off. So, now I'm 3-3. Game is looking very ugly. I wanted to play this game out. And then they start throwing a little bit here. We start getting a few kills. And now this is where the game turns, guys. All it takes is one decent ult. I'm still working towards my second item. They overstay on the map. I get a really good little angle here where I'm able to kind of push them into the grass there. Boom, chase off, get 2 kills, get a shutdown onto the Karthus, kite it back out. My team's able to follow up here. Draven comes, I kite around, and tying back to the grass queue, the importance of grass queue. Creating space for my team. Take another grass queue instantaneously because they're all auto attack base. And that is allows my team to kind of clean up here. So through good little awareness, grass queue usage, and coming in from the side, tying in all those concepts together, we're able to kind of turn this game around. So as a result, I shove it out a little bit. I get my Serpent's Fang. Now, what other fundamental are we talking about here? Next objective is Dragon coming up in 1 minute. And I know they're all going to group around this Dragon. And I know they're kind of late to the objective. So I'm thinking to myself, well, Curtis, again, this is your opportunity. I mean, you've got 2 items now. The Draven has no armor. Karthus has no armor. There's still some target view to get. So I try to walk over this objective early, tying into one of the concepts we spoke about in the guide, and try and make a pick, because this is where I know they are going to go. This is where they are going to go, right? So I cover one midway first, and then I use my sweeper. You'll see in a second. I chuck a pink ward down, so I know they're not there, and just chill. I'm just chilling. They don't know I'm here, and I know there's someone going to be in the area. I'm just playing patient. And I know I have to make a pick because we're not going to be able to win the straight front-to-back team fight, and able to go for a nice little pick onto this Draven. And then beautiful, look at this, coming from the side, creating space with or just threatening from the side, utilizing my grass queue to force them back. So look at that. Get to the objective early, identifying the members with no stopwatches or low mobility. Now I'm trying to come around from the flank here, trying to create a little bit of space, knowing that I don't have ultimate. I just want them to know I'm here, to make them really scared. So I'm kind of walking up a little bit, dragging this Karthus' attention. Fiddle waste ult. unfortunately. But then again, I'm sitting over the wall right now, trying to create space. I think Carthus ends up queuing me right now because he's trying to find where I am. But again, I'm making their life very miserable. I'm just sitting off to the side. Probably could have, maybe I could have jumped in for a QWQ, but I didn't want to fully commit there. And then beautiful, I split the fight. They're all having to back up. Now I can turn on to the next target. And notice how this is all the stuff that I was talking about. Getting to the objectives early. Creating space in fights with my grass queue. This guy ends up overextending here. I don't know what he was doing. So I just end up killing him pretty easily. What happens here? I think it Carthus ulti. Okay, so moving on a little bit. Game gets extended because of my little picks here. And now same thing. Shove the side, and now I'm trying to come in from the flank. Right? Because I know that Baron is the next objective. So I'm sweeping around the area, trying to come in, find a little angle where I can get onto the backline. I hoped that they were going to start this Baron, in which I can get a huge ultimate. But my fiddle gets caught off, I think, in a second by the Thresh here. And then they end up walking forward and just killing my fiddle, unfortunately. So I feel like if fiddle respected here, I've done all the right things. Like I'm positioning in a really, really good location. You know, I'm thinking about where they're going to be. I'm ticking all the boxes. It was just unfortunate that, you know, my fiddle wasn't really having his best game. So this is the sort of game you're going to have, guys, as QIYANA, where, look, I got counted. There was very, very little counterplay in the early lane. But as you can see, I'm still trying to make up for my deficit in the early lane through, again, thinking about where they're going to be, trying to get to objectives early, utilizing my sweeper and my terrain scaling, creating space in team fights, trying to get max value out of my ultimate here. You got to be a ninja. You got to think in the future. You can't just be a stock standard front to back mage player. So then here, we end up waiting around, and I try to use my ultimate here to create a little bit of space and try and maybe get something to happen and force the enemy to react, but maybe a little bit premature. We end up trying to play the fight. It was really, really awkward. And then we end up losing it pretty hard. So moving on a little bit, what happens here? So I end up, again, still catching sides, trying to get as much farm as possible. Now, this was actually pretty good here. Let's talk about this one. So again, Dragon was up. I'm trying to get around to the side. I don't really want to come in linearly here. And then Malphite looks to come in with a TP. I'm peeling back. And I'm not really that scared because I have my grass queue. I'm able to avoid the Malphite ult. And I'm just chilling, using grass queue, waiting for them to line up. And then I see in a second, you'll see right here, just auto-attacking, creating space for my Vayne. And I use one of those peel ultimates. Look at that. So I'm just chilling. I can't dive onto the Draven here. I mean, maybe I could, but I'm just going to trade 1-for-1 with the Carthus. I don't want to trade 1-for-1. My Vayne can actually mow through this Malphite. So if I peeled my Vayne here, because Draven also has as Tabi, so I don't even know if I would one-shot, especially with Carthus right behind. And I think Carthus actually has exhaust here. So anyway, I decide to play the front to back and peel using grass queue, auto-attacking this guy down to death, waiting for a really great moment to peel with my ultimate there. And I would actually take a pretty decent front-to-back fight without even trading kills with the Carthus, which was actually quite nice. That's something, again, you can do, utilizing, you know, your ultimate creatively to peel. Same thing here, trying to shove out the side, constantly looking to loop behind, try and get something done. And look what happens again. Because I'm shoving and moving, sweeping, utilizing the Scry's Bloom, I'm able to come in, and then I catch Carthus off guard walking into the river. Boom. QWEQ one shot. Boom. Look at that. Guys, this is what we're talking about in the guide. The combo. The sweeper. Getting to objectives early. Thinking about where they're going to be. Terrain scaling. Creating space. And now this allows my team to make another pick onto the Draven. I'm able to kind of maneuver around a little bit here. And now I'm able to get a really nice 3-man ultimate onto them. And look at that. This Bayfeng level or what, guys? So what was a really hard game through really good QIYANA fundamentals, thinking in advance, I'm able to turn this game around. Now, this is where it gets a little bit unfortunate. I'm trying to stick around, take their jungle camps, knowing that they're going to come back straight here because they know we're probably going to do Baron. So instead of going to the Dragon, I mean, I want them to do it, but we just turn. I see Carthus walk into the jungle here. You'll see it in a second. Right? I'm thinking, okay, where they're going to be. So I see Carthus here. Now, my job, if we think the trends in this game, what actually led to this game being relatively successful was, again, creating space and making picks beforehand. So I'm trying to maneuver around. I know this is pinked. I thought Carthus was going to walk through here, but he doesn't. So I'm trying to loop around. Again, I don't have ultimate yet, so I'm playing conservative. And then I see Draven. And I know that I have Surrealitas, I have my Serpent's Fang, this doesn't do shit, so I can kill the Draven. Notice how, again, I'm always thinking about what they're going to do. Now, unfortunately, Draven chooses to not walk through this corridor, and Thresh actually uses the Scry's Bloom very intelligently, spotting me out, so now I'm forced to kind of back up a little bit. And I'm trying to come in from the side and create space, but unfortunately my team gets engaged on. I can't walk through the Karthus here, and I'm too split off, and this is, again, talking about a good quality mistake. I'm just caught off. And then, you know, he comes from behind me and then I just die. And we kind of lose the game off this. So notice how, look, I was so close to winning this game. I ticked all the boxes, but just, it was just a little bit off of my positioning. Maybe what I could have done here, instead of walking all the way up there, maybe I could have sat here and then just gone for a QWEQ and traded my life, and then they just do the Baron, potentially. But even then, I just thought that I thought that as soon as I saw Draven, I swear Draven was going to walk through here. But just really, really well played from the Thresh. And then I just got caught off guard. I mean, if I have ultimate, what I would have done is probably, I would have definitely walked down and just killed the Karthus, because I wouldn't have had to commit and get into melee range. So, look, a bit unfortunate, but again, it really highlights the importance of all those mid-game fundamentals that we're talking out throughout the guide. And now the game after this gets really, really hard. Same thing here, though. A classic mistake. I'm trying to get to the next objective first, like I have been doing the entire game. I'm trying to camp up, sweep, sweep. And then for some reason, and here I thought, oh, Draven's mid, Malphite's here. I actually saw the other members on the other entrance. So in my mind right now, there's no way. I mean, they're split, right? This is a beautiful position to me. I'm in a great position. But then I see one, they're doing like a 1-1-3. I don't know what the hell they're doing. So I'm thinking, great, we can start the dragon. I'm gonna get a really good flank. I can either walk around here or kill Draven as someone walks through here. I'm in a great position, but unfortunately, the Scion ults both of us in the exact same brush, and then we just get one shot and we lose the game. So again, I don't really care about these mistakes, honestly. I mean, these are mistakes I made with intention, right? I know why I'm here. I have intention with why I'm here. These are just unfortunate losses. And this is actually how I lose a lot of my games, where I'm just not good enough yet to execute upon my positioning. I'm getting there. I'm very, very close, but I'm just failing to go to that next step. So hopefully what I wanted to get across with this VOD, guys, is show the power of that mid-game, all that mid-game stuff that we spoke about. I think it's a really, really good example of it. So in this one, guys, this was actually one of the first games I played on my main account at 1KLP, in which, to be honest with you, I think I did this a little bit prematurely. I don't think I was ready to play my QIYANA at this level yet. I don't think I'm at that level yet with QIYANA. I need a little bit more time, probably another 50 games. But I ended up doing pretty well this game, and I think it does highlight a lot of my strengths and weaknesses on QIYANA, and again, ties together all those kind of fundamentals that we spoke about in the guide. So this one was a range matchup, Xerath, a pretty easy matchup for QIYANA. Not that much AP, unfortunately. It was a bit of a tricky game from a comp perspective, but let's go through it. And look, I can't remember bits and pieces of this one, so you're gonna have to bear with me as we go through this one. So diving straight into the early lane here. I start W, so I can use my W reactively to avoid skill shots, just like that. Pretty stock standard. And my hypothesis in a lot of these matchups when I'm versing a mage is I'm going to respect levels 1 and 2, try to minimize the amount of damage that I'm taking, and then play off the bounced wave. So really not too much here to look at. Thinning the waves as much as I can, if he's going to give it to me. Go back a little bit. So as you can see, he's given me space to thin, so I'm going to thin. And he played quite defensive, and he didn't really shove that far, so I'm able to kind of contest level 2, level 3 in the middle of the lane, which I don't mind. The goal here is, again, essentially to take as little damage as possible. As long as the wave is somewhat on my side by level 3, I don't really care. Versus lower cooldown mages like, you know, Zoe and Victor and Syndra and Ori, they will most definitely shove you in on tower, and you probably won't be able to get any farm, or very, very little farm. But into matchups like this, it's a little bit easier. Making to make a choice between me and the minions, excellent. Sitting on my element there, looking for a bit of a short trade here to see, and this is kind of one of those calibration trades where I kind of wanted to see how he uses his E. So as you can see, using the E through the minion trade, because he's tethering me quite effectively. So he ends up using it pretty much instantaneously. So I'm like, all right, interesting. You're gonna use it like that. All right, that's okay with me. Wave's in a really, really good spot. And one thing you got to keep in mind, guys, if you go even farm with a mage, it's very good for QIYANA. A lot of people feel like, oh my god, if I'm going even with a mage, it's not good. No, it is very, very good. you should no way be ever allowed to go even farm as a QIYANA into any mage. Excellent. Again, pretty stock standard. Farming under tower here, nothing too special. Good, good, good. I think my jungle was actually auto-filled this game. He's a mid laner playing like jungle for the first time, so I think he actually died to his buffs. Classic auto-fill gaming. Waves on my side. Notice how I'm posturing very aggressively. I'm trying to, like, you know, elicit a response, holding my W reactively, trying to zone him from creeps here. If he's not going to walk up and use his stun, I'm just going to sit here in my stealth, play relatively aggressive. Then I see a bit of a skirmish here because I'm QIYANA. I'm going to default response, walk to any of these skirmishes. Unfortunately, I have to back up and I kind of get stuck in a really sticky situation here. Xerath does a really good job of holding his stun, and I think I end up having to... I think I just die here. I can't remember if... No, do I? Actually, I remember this. I could have escaped if I... What I had to do was E. If I E through the blue here, I'll actually jump over the wall and I will escape. But I didn't end up doing that because it's just not in my mental stack right now. It's not something that I've experimented with, so I end up just dying there. So, look, I don't mind this death because I see this and I'm thinking to myself, well, surely this is going to be good, right? Because, I mean, in my mind, Zach should be level 3. Zach's going to just go in here, should be pretty free. But I didn't realize that Zach was level 2. So he goes here, he flashes on the spot, misses his Q completely. And I don't even think he has his E, so he does nothing. So I think that if my jungler didn't die with a blue buff at level 2 here, this would have been free. But again, I'm not really that fussed with this mistake. I can see my intention. They're low members. I'm playing QIYANA. I want to create chaos. It's very coherent with my identity. But anyway, because I was CSing pretty well in the early lane, I'm able to come back, only missing a few creeps, and I end up getting my Dirk. Now, I know that I have a little bit of tempo. So with my tempo, I'm able to kind of shove and get a little bit of prior and maybe get something done here. So I try to get the wave out as fast as possible. Hover topside to help my jungler get a scuttle potentially. Get a nice little ward out in a second. Beautiful. Now I start hovering top, but then they end up chucking a pink ward there, so I know that their jungler is somewhere on topside. Nothing too fancy. Good, good, good. End up baiting out the E because I know Zach's here. Good, good, good. End up getting the flash. Huge. This guy tries to follow up. End up utilizing my element auto attacks quite nicely and getting a nice little kill. Pretty stock standard, but the main thing there is that I blew the flash from the Xerath. So it will be interesting to see how this game pans out from here. So, I mean, look, Xerath is farming okay. I'm farming basically even with him. My jungler is still set incredibly far behind. I think my top laner dies here. Yep, he dies. Their jungler's getting quite fed. I ended up deciding not to reset on their wave. I think maybe because it wasn't a cannon and I had some pots and some biscuits here. I'm letting the wave come back out onto my side. And now I have ultimate. This is where I can generate a lot of kill threat. Now, it was interesting here. He didn't end up using his stun. He ends up holding it quite well. So I end up just disengaging here. I know I can't commit inside this big minion wave. And I know that their jungler is somewhere in the area here. So I just end up CSing this under tower. Going for a reset on a cannon. Getting my tier 2 boot. Swapping to sweeper. Timing mid-flash. Beautiful. So, pretty solid game so far. I mean, they've gotten dragon. My bot lane's actually down quite a bit, and my jungler's down. But I'm feeling pretty good because the enemy's quite squishy, and I just feel overall quite confident versus Xerath in general, especially as I get into mid-game. The early lane's a little bit tricky, but once I get into mid-game, it's all good. Beautiful. And I see that top is taking really good trades, and he's building wave into this Wukong. So I start sweeping on my way through, get spotted on a pink. And I don't think I end up committing here. I think I end up just... What do I do here? Ah, I remember this. So, I think I was going to commit here. I didn't know where the Viego was, but he ends up spotting me in the river. And I thought we could actually just straight up burst this guy, but he ends up healing off the Scuttle. If Scuttle wasn't there, I think that's a 110% a free kill. So it is what it is. I end up wasting my ultimate, but do get the Viego ult though, which is good. And now I'm in a pretty sticky situation. My team invades, but I had to catch the wave, so I end up walking my way over. I see a very chaotic fight, and I know that Viego doesn't have ultimate, and Walker is extremely good in these chaotic fights. And I know that Xerath also does not have flash. So I end up just backing up here. But then they continue the fight. Utilizing my passive autos. Good, good, good. And then end up getting a nice little kill there. Alright, beautiful. So, shove mid in again. Look for another reset here. I'm doing pretty well. 77 CS by 9 minutes 30 as a QIYANA in this sort of game is quite good. Alright, so got my grass element. Beautiful. Just chilling. And now at this point in time, 10 minutes in, you know, I don't really want to freeze anymore. Generally, if possible, I kind of want to exert pressure on the map. So, you know, that's tying into the pressure game that I call it the pressure game post 10 minutes. I mean, ultimately, if I can't get pressure and I have no choice and I have to hold for solid kills, then I will. But my default response will be to try and shove and get something done and exert pressure on the map. But as you can see here, I'm trying to stack waves together through aggressive posturing and exerting, really trying to tether with my E and fish for those QWQ combos if the Xerath allows it. Getting the wave in. And notice I'm holding my abilities. So I can do that. I can hold my W reactively. This guy really scared the crap out of me. I remember thinking in this moment that the Viego was ganking me. That's why he was walking up so aggressively. That's why I didn't just E onto him. Like, it's 100% Viego was there. But for some reason, he wasn't. So it is what it is. And again, look what I'm doing here. Hovering out of vision, sweeping, knowing that I have a pink in that top side, so they don't know where I am. And as a result, I think Xerath actually loses track of me right now. He thinks that I'm roaming top side when I'm actually just chilling here. I'm able to go for a nice little all-in onto this Xerath. Beautiful. So that, again, shows the importance of generating threat out of vision. Because Xerath's default response is going to be, oh shit, I mean, if QIYANA's roaming topside, like he's done beforehand, I better shove mid. So we end up getting the flash here. Beautiful. Nice little all in there. Excellent. Shove the next wave as well. I think this was a bit of an overstay on the map right now, but I'm trying to defend my jungler on the rift here. I try to create a little bit of space with my grass Q, but I end up just disengaging because we can no way fight this versus Viego. So I end up just disengaging. Reset, come back. Now I've got my prowlers. I time mid flash again. And this is where, as you'll see, I'll start to sweep onto one side of the map, creating as much threat as possible. So when I do hover out of vision, I'm going to be able to, you know, make the Xerath make a choice. Good, good, good. Shove the wave in. Hover bot because my team is actually rifting bot. So I just hover out of vision here. Good, good, good. They don't need me. Help with the dragon. I see a bit of a bot play happen here. Hold my ultimate there. I don't really need to use it. Excellent. Good, good, good. Now again, I know that mid doesn't have flash because I've been timing it. He goes in. Beautiful. Nice little flash. I think this was a flash R. What was this? Okay, so it was flash Q, RWQ. Yeah. All right, nice. And again, the importance of timing flashes, pretty stock standard. All right, so beautiful early lane. When you're versing an artillery mage, they can't really do much, especially when you have a high threat jungler. This kind of also shows the importance of pairing QIYANA with a not only an AP jungler, but a jungler that does definitely exert threat. That's why when you're playing QIYANA and you have like a Shyvana jungle, like even like a Kayn, I mean, you don't really do anything. It's really miserable. All right, so I remember here thinking, what do I remember? Okay, so here we didn't know where their team was, so I was kind of hesitating. So I kind of compensate in a way and end up dying for no reason. I think this was one of those moments where I knew that I didn't want to go in because I knew Viego was hovering around the area and their entire team was there. But Zach went in, and instead of saying no, you know, tying back to my my mid-game tip there, it's okay to say no. I just didn't say no, and I get really bit in the ass for this. And that's actually worst case scenario where not only do I die, I actually waste my ultimate as well. And knowing how important my ultimate is, that is the sort of play that can lose you a game. So now the map is opened up a little bit. I start to shove side and move. Shove, move, shove, move. Go for a QWEQ combo. Get the shutdown onto the Viego. Kiting around a little bit with my grass element. Excellent. End up getting a pretty big stun onto the enemies there. I probably didn't need to go against the wall, but I end up not end up surviving just. And again, shows the importance of grass cube. So as you can see, this is a pretty hard game, right? I mean, I'm kind of strong, but it's a tough game. It's a very tough game. All right, so now I'm heading into the side lane. And if we take a look at the scoreboard right now, I think the enemy Viego is very strong at this point. 6-2. Wukong's actually very strong as well. Ziggs is quite farmed. My bot lane's going average. Karma's quite strong. Xerath is actually farmed okay. So a lot of people would panic in a situation like this. But again, I'm thinking to myself, well, look, I've got a pretty strong side lane. I don't think they can really touch me. I'm thinking to myself, I remember here pinging back on top side. I thought that I actually thought that they weren't going to contest. And I thought that after the rift, they were just going to disengage. But I end up not compensating, just going bot right now, knowing that we can't really team fight yet. So I end up trading my team off in a way for more side lane farm, trying to get to my 3 items. And now here we go. We're at a dragon fight. Knowing that they're not really going to contest, we end up getting a free dragon. And for some reason, their Ziggs actually just completely disrespects. So I'm able to kind of catch him off guard. Nice. Beautiful, same thing, shoving the side lanes. Now, again, my team fights. I think they end up winning this one, and I don't really know how. But this one really gets us back into the game. Because now, as a result, I know my team's starting the Baron. So instead of walking to the Baron, look what I do. I sit off to the side, knowing where they're going to be, because as soon as I see the TP come in, boom. Look at that. Save my E. Pretty stock standard. Again, don't default to where your team is. Default to where the enemy team is going to go. And that's where you can pick them off in rotation. And again, I'm on the back line again. I'm not just sitting front to back. They kind of forget where I am. I'm able to use my grass Q, close the gap, another nice little pick onto the Karma, creating chaos in the back line. Beautiful. Now, same thing. You're going to see me do the exact same thing, guys. Shove the side, shove, move. That's been the trend in both of these VODs, right, guys? I've been shoving, moving, generating threat from the side, trying to maneuver into a position where I'm able to get into the back line. So here I shove, hovering out of vision, trying to sweep on my way through, clear wards. Good, good, good. Here I end up getting caught off guard. I think I didn't expect them to be able to come bot this fast. I think. What happens here? Yeah, Viego movement speed with that stealth thing really caught me off guard here. So I ended up giving a big shutdown, which was a big mistake. I just didn't think they could kill me here. So that was well played to them. Bit of an overstep from me. Again, I know drag is the next objective. I'm trying to position myself around the objective beforehand, trying to get to objectives as early as I possibly can. This should be ringing or sending you back a trip down memory lane. I think I showed this in one of the clips. I'm getting to the objective early, knowing that I really want to get back onto that backline. I want to get onto that Ziggs. I want to get onto that Xerath. I can't afford to play front to back. Wukong will screw me up. I can't walk through the Viego. And here I saw that there's wards left, right, and center. I couldn't care less. I told them to pull it, and I stand here, creating space. My team engages, no hesitation. Straight onto the Xerath. A little bit overkill there, and end up just winning this fight afterwards because we get straight onto their backline. Look at that. Beautiful stuff. And then again, same thing. Shove. Get myself into a little bit of a creative position here. Sweep. Knowing that they're probably going to go try and set up the Baron next. Way too overkill onto the Ziggs here. I should have just done a QWQ. I think even just QWQ, not even QWEQ. QWQ would kill here. I don't need to R whatsoever. But it's the same premise here. Getting to the objective early. Utilizing the terrain scaling here. Making sure that I'm getting the grass Q here for the double element proc. Picking them off in rotation. And then same thing, sitting off to the side, making it really difficult for them to walk into the objective, moving forward, split push bot, make them make a choice, and we end up just winning the game. So again, this is a bit of night and day from the last VOD, isn't it? This was a VOD where I had a much stronger side lane, comparatively to the Scion game, but the way I played it was actually very similar. I just had a little bit more room to play with. I could be a little bit more creative, and just had a lot more threat because I was versing a much squishier team. Instead of versing a Scion, I was versing a Xerath. So I don't want you guys to be afraid of scaling alongside, you know, some of these comps. As long as you have AP on your team and you're versing some relatively squishy, even if they're not squishy, QIYANA scales quite well to 3 items. At least that's my hypothesis anyway in a lot of these games. So hopefully between the Scion VOD and this VOD, you kind of get to see the 2 different types of laning phases and mid games and how the sort of things that you should be looking for. And this should give you a pretty good guideline. It talks a lot about, kind of loops in a lot of the things we spoke about within the guide. So by now, we've watched the entire guide. We've watched 2 of my VODs. And now we're going to see the master do it, all right? We're going to take a look at a recent VOD of Beifeng playing QIYANA into Yone, which is actually a little bit of a tricky matchup if played well from the Yone. Depends on the setup that the Yone takes as well, if they take secondary resolve. Now, Doinby in this scenario actually took exhaust and resolve. So when you're in a situation like this, it's very difficult to really get anything done. And the reason being, Yone can be a pain in the ass is because the wave clear is obnoxious. And Yone as well is actually hard to burst because he can actually use his E reactively to your combo, which prevents him from getting knocked into walls and all sorts of things. So this is really not a good matchup for QIYANA, at least in the isolated 1v1. Obviously, if QIYANA gets the ball rolling and can start to snowball and get something done, then yes, it can quite easily turn very QIYANA favored. But yeah, I thought this was a great one to look at and really tie together all the fundamentals that we've seen so far and kind of put my QIYANA to shame here. So as you can see, he's respecting fully levels 1 and 2 here. There's nothing he can really do. He's going to catch the C under tower. Looks like he misses one of these CS here. Pretty stock standard stuff. Catches the first phase under tower. Doinby's going for the early level 2 here. Already, I disagree here. I feel as though I feel like it would have been better off for him to just simply give this first creep of the second wave because he can't contest here and he lines himself up with a Q3 and gets nailed by an extra auto and a W. So you really want to minimize the amount of damage you're taking levels 1 to 2 here. So I'm not a big fan of this start here from Beifeng. Here we go. Gets nailed by the Q3 again. So Doinby's absolutely annihilating him here. And look, this is all avoidable. This is all, I would say it's less Doinby playing well and more Beifeng kind of disrespecting and playing a little bit greedy. I don't really know what this is. It's okay to give this farm. He takes the W here preemptively, which is not what I would have done. I think what I would have done instead here is actually just use my basic Q instead and then use my W reactively to avoid the Q3 here. Because he's not going to come up on cooldown before the Q3 comes through. And there's no reason for him to get an NQ range there. He could have got that on the other side of the minion. So a very, very sloppy levels 1 and 2. Whenever I'm in a situation like this where I'm this low by level 2, I'm screwed. You know, in my eyes, it's borderline end of review. So we'll see what he does here. So he's procced a bone plating. He's already used one of his pots here. And he has actually gone secondary precision. So he doesn't have access to biscuits, which is going to make it really, really annoying. Trying to tether out that E. Excellent. Again, just gets level 3. Now, this is where the matchup will get a little bit interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Beifeng fights back with some, those EQ trades with the grass element. Again, just really simple stuff here. Make sure that you're throwing the Q before you take the other element. Might as well, in order to get max value. The passives. Avoids the Q3. Beautiful. Look at this. Look at that trade. That trade is literally identical to the one I show in the basic trading pattern section. Basically what I've been talking about. And that's the pretty stock standard combo. The only difference being here that he doesn't go for the fadeaway Q. So he goes for the EQ here. I don't think his W might not have been up. So he goes for the EQ, auto, W, and then he should Q here. There's no reason not to. Maybe he's feeling a little bit stressed with his mana conservation. Maybe he's trying to conserve some of his mana to CS here. But yeah, classic stock standard trading pattern into melees. And this is what he's seeing right now is the very unforgiving nature of presence of mind or secondary precision. You don't have the access to biscuits here, which is making his life quite miserable. And as you can see, due to his poor resource management, levels 1 and 2, he's just getting shoved under tower. And there's nothing he can really do. Doinby's doing an excellent job of keeping him pinned under tower. The Karthus is actually shown elsewhere on the map. He actually showed for a bot gank here. So this is essentially QIYANA's worst nightmare. You're being left in an isolated 1v1 versus a champion that has incredibly good wave clear. You've even messed up your levels 1 to 2, in which you've gone really, really and there's no way for you to get a good quality reset. Usually, you wanna ideally wait in lane for 750 gold so you can actually get that Dirk, but I believe in this what he does it because he's so desperate. He needs to get out of this lane and prevent himself from just being stuck here. Under tower. So he takes this as a nice little reset window, tempo reset on the cannon. This way he's going to get back onto the map. And he knows if he doesn't take this, he's going to have to wait until the next cannon, which, you know, it might just be, he might just miss too much farm. So he decides to go for the reset here, come out of base, goes down at least, he goes down, what, 2 creeps there basically, comes up and shoves the next wave here, sees that his jungler's making a play onto the bot side. And because this Karthus has already ganked bot, they're looking for the re-gank bot. Now, this is something that, you know, it's a little bit of an opportunistic roam. Like, it looks like he's noticed his team is making a play bot side, so he's like, all right, I'm going to shove and go bot. There's a world in which he tempo resets here, and there's nothing for him to do, in which he'll just go probably get a high quality, you know, a decent quality ward, come back, you know, do his thing. But he's very fortunate that his team is making a play at the exact same time, and he has a lot of gank set up with this Pantheon, so he ends up moving to bot here and getting a nice little play. Now, again, this all wouldn't really be possible if he kind of just stayed in lane and slowly got poked under tower and tried to play that perfect, flawless CS game. So he made the sacrifice, like he lost, you know, 2 creeps from that other wave, and then he's losing probably another whole entire wave here as well. So it does come at a sacrifice, and he loses the play for it. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to be very, very tricky. So, coming out of base here, notice how he's pressing tab. We just have to assume what information he's processing. He sees that top lane is 0-1. Very unlikely that Renekton is going to come back into the game. Pantheon 3-0 bot lane versus 0-2 Ezreal. There's only so much a Pantheon can do, so it'll be interesting to see how he wins this game from a win con perspective. I mean, if I were playing this game, I mean, probably stack dragons and then maybe continue to dive bot. Or if Pantheon, I don't really play with a Pantheon bot all that often. Maybe you could even just roam with the Pantheon and maybe somehow get Renekton into a decent position. I'm unsure. So I'm actually super fascinated to see how he manages this game from this point onwards. The great thing about his roam bot is he didn't have to burn any sums, which is definitely a plus factor there. Okay. So, comes out, gets a little bit of a ward here. A bit of a sloppy ward, not a big fan of that ward. Doesn't really do too much. I'd be much more of a fan if he actually put his ward bot side. Diana shows bot here. He knows that Yone's gone for another reset. Okay, moving down. Aggressive pink, looking for Diana in the jungle here, talking about those creative jungle picks like I mentioned in the guide. Gets spotted on the lane minions there, so he's probably going to get collapsed on here. No, he doesn't get spotted. Interesting. I thought he actually got spotted as he walked around that corner. Okay, so comes back. Doinby is just being an absolute pain in the ass in terms of constantly making him react to waves. I mean, this is why these high wave clear champions like Yone, like Rise, like Yasuo are such a pain in the ass, because you just have such a small little roam window. So as you can see, he's constantly moving into that bot side. Wonder if he'll continue to play bot or if he'll play around his Karthus location. It'll be super interesting. Grass Q to disengage, grabs the earth element, instantly uses the earth element because he probably doesn't want to sit on it and probably take another grass, I'm assuming, yeah. And that's what your default response in a lot of these melee matchups are going to be. You ideally just want to sit on that grass element there. Uses the grass element for defense, constantly pick it up again. Okay, so Yone looks to be dragon, maybe, with the Diana, or getting a plant, or getting the scuttle. I'm unsure what Doinby's doing there. Okay, so Grass sees Diana, it looks like they're trying to bait a 2v2, because look, Karthus sees the Diana here, so Karthus was hovering. Now, this is what I was talking about the guide. You know how I was saying how when you watch a VOD, you'll notice that the games are played out very differently than what they might be on your server. So, look at this. This Karthus knows how vulnerable this mid-jungle 2v2 is, right? He sees that Diana's walking up the river. He also sees that this is a melee versus melee, and, you know, it's obviously very vulnerable. So instead of just defaulting to going back to his camps and doing his thing, he just simply hovers. He just sits here. And this is something you just don't see very often. These junglers know how to play around a QIYANA. So I really, really like that Karthus is hovering here temporarily, because if Yone would have misstepped there and uses E aggressively, that could have easily been a kill. So he's playing very conservatively. It looks like Dyna's cross-mapping onto top side here. The game pace is actually slowed down considerably. Not usually the sort of game that you see. He's trying to find Dyna in the river here by the looks of things. Maybe he's thinking that Dyna was going to go onto the river. Holy moly. All right. And this is, again, we're starting to see the genius of Beifeng here. So he sees that Dyna cross-map to top side. Instead of defaulting to catching a wave and then maybe or ditching away from going bot side, he's thinking to himself, well, Dyna's likely going to do this rift. Diana also knows that Karthus is going bot side. So he's actually going to sneak around the backside, knowing that that's warded, making sure that he can grab this as well, and then see if we can sneak a kill here. So it'll be very interesting to see if he can get this and get out. He does know he has Karthus ult as well. Goes for the one shot. Not even close, because he didn't really factor in the smite here by the looks of things. Looks like maybe he forgot about the smite. I feel like if Dyna doesn't have smite here, it could be a one shot. So he goes for the flash R here. Auto WQ misses it. Looks like Dyna just survives. If he hit the Q, to be honest, Karthus would have finished him off. So this is super interesting. I don't know if this comes from a place of desperation, like he feels like he has to get something done, or because he knows that if Dyna gets the Rift held for free, Yone's slowly going to get plates and they're just going to break mid. Maybe it comes from a defense, defense from a protecting the Rift perspective, or maybe he knows that trading 1-for-1 and Karthus being able to finish the Dyna on the back end is just worth it, just in general. Because Karthus getting kills and then preventing this, I mean, you're killing two birds with one stone. You're actually preventing the Rift Herald. You're getting Karthus snowballed as basically the solo AP in this game, and otherwise you're just slowly going to lose mid lane and get outscaled anyway. So it might come from that sort of a place. I'm unsure. One thing that I failed to mention in this game as well is that this champion and this champion are absolute pain in the ass to verse from Yone perspective. Something to keep in mind. This is a very hard QIYANA game. And the slide in the guide where we talk about win conditions. This is what QIYANA is all about, right? And this is what makes him so smart. We don't know what he's thinking. We don't know, specifically why he feels the need to do this. Maybe based off his experiences versus a Yone and knowing that if they get the rift for free and he can't really do anything. Because if you think about it, I'm just spitballing here. If he ends up just sitting mid, Dyna gets the rift for free, and maybe he even gets a tempo rift and goes bot. What's going to happen is that they're just going to rift mid. And that's happened to me so many times where I've actually just said, oh, I'm losing. I got to make something happen. I go for a dive play bot. They get rift and they get mid tower, and I'm kind of up shit creek. So I'm assuming it has something to do with preventing the rift in combination with getting a kill for his Karthus. And this is the sort of stuff, that only will come with a metric ton of games. And it's really understanding how to win a game with QIYANA from a macro perspective. So Karthus is able to clean up on the back end, which is excellent. They don't end up getting the rift, which is really, really, really good. He ends up covering bot here while Pantheon roams up to secure the rift. Auto. Look at that. Utilizing those autos. He should probably E here. I'm surprised he doesn't E a little bit earlier there, but holds on to it. Excellent. Goes bot, covers the waves while he's here. And instead of roaming up, ends up committing to bot tower here. Maybe thinking that Ezreal, because Ezreal hasn't reset in a long time. And is just getting plates. Maybe because he doesn't have ultimate, there's nothing he can do there. Or maybe he believes the play was going to be over because it's relatively early in the game. Or maybe he feels like he just wants to rush his prowlers. A very interesting little adaptation there that definitely is not something you would tend to see with the QIYANA. Usually you would want to push and move and get to players, but no, he's playing this relatively conservatively. Okay, CSing while he's here, fast forwarding a little bit, resets, sells his refillable here for prowlers. I think he has to do that at this point in time. Has ultimate. Team's walking into the dragon. And notice how, the game pace is now really beginning to speed up. And he's constantly trying to get to these objective fights. Setting in the pit around the corner. I'll be interested to see if Dyna walks up. Nah, they can't fight that. Well done. Really good hovering here from Beifeng. Good, good, good. Lane assignments get fixed up again. I don't even think he necessarily wins the 1v1 here. No, I don't think he does. Between the exhaust, between the secondary resolve, he can only just sit back like this and take non-committal trades. As you can see, he's just got half health. And he's going to heal off the wave anyway because he has a Vamp Scepter. So Doinby's doing a really good job here. That one dragon is going to allow them to scale quite nicely. Dinosaur's topside. Playing poised right now. Not really much he can do. He's kind of locked in the lane. Sees a bit of an opportunistic roam here. Can't really commit, so instantly turns back around, knowing that he doesn't want to give plates unnecessarily. But then it feels like he's very indecisive here. Okay. Interesting. Look what he was doing here. So he hovered, saw that the play was gone, too far away. So then he starts to go back mid. Then he sees Janna, thinking about where the enemy is going to go. Janna, I think it looks like he thought Janna was going to cross map and try to reach his play. So he kind of sits around the corner thinking that Janna might come through. And then when he sees Janna take the long path, he just walks back mid. Again, it's something we spoke about, and you kind of saw in my VODs as well, the importance of thinking about where they could be. Very interesting little play there. Bit of an interesting Yuumi ult. Don't really get much done there. Oh, Doinby. Very silly mistake. Holds on to his ultimate there. Now, that's next level. I had no way in a million years would have held on to my ultimate here. He knows that you just don't need it because he's committed without the E. There's no need to use it. So, I mean, props to Beifeng for holding his ult there. That's not something I would have done in a million years. Really, really great stuff. Okay, so again, opportunistic kill there. Nothing too fancy so far. I mean, Doinby's still farming basically 10 CS per minute. Gets a plate. Greets for nearly 2 plates. Overstays a little bit. Comes back for Lucidity Boots. Still, the game is very hard. I mean, Fiora's going to be quite strong here. I mean, Ezreal's going to be a pain in the ass. Pantheon's not really farming that effectively. Still a really hard game. That one kill there on Yone there was pretty bloody awesome for the game state. Notice how he's just giving prior. He can't really contest. And, talking about, knowing your game plan, whether you're playing to contest or you're playing to just be opportunistic and roam and help your team. He's not contesting with the Yone in the 1v1 whatsoever. He's like, all right, you can have a prior. I can't fight you. I'm just going to play for fights with my team. So he's trying to collapse here. Oh, my goodness. So Ezreal comes in from the side, as you can see, trying to ult these targets that have mobility, hence flashes and Ezreal's E makes things absolutely disastrous. Tries to get the wave in quickly. Very, very fast reaction times, gets him out of that one. And as you can see how hard it is to play QIYANA in these games, man, it's just scraping by a lot of these situations. Really, really hard. Alright, so comes bot here. Lane assignments get swapped up a little bit. Shoves and moves. Again, trying to get to the objectives early. Putting himself in a really good location here. Be interesting to see if he moves up or he just camps in the bush. He's waiting for someone to come by so we can get that one shot and defend his team. So that's the third dragon. That's most definitely his win condition here. His main win con, it looks like his Pantheon, who's 7-1, and the dragon stack in here. So it wouldn't surprise me if he just continues to get to these objectives early. I think they're going to trade away that rift and just make a play here. Oh. Very risky to go for that when Fiora has parry here. I don't know what's going on here from Fiora. Goes for the play. Bit of a... I feel like he probably should have gone for one more passive auto here before he threw the Q here. Bit sloppy. Auto. Oh no, he auto Q'd there. Okay, he did get it. Good, good, good. Gets a little pick with the Fiora there. With the Karthus, sorry. Again, a lot of good game sense here. Like, whether it's him or... I think it's the Karthus pinging this. He probably thinks Fiora is hanging around the area here. So, good read on that. Ends up getting the nice little pick there. Well done. Good, good, good. Gets Krugs on the way through. Doesn't really feel like he can do anything mid right now because it's an Ezreal and they can't really force. So ends up just farming bot. Now he has 2 items. He has his Serpent's Fang. Yeah. And this is what I mean. Like, Fiora is so hard to deal with in the side lane because the parry and the dash, too much mobility. So he tries to go for an all-in there. Fails it. Ends up trading... Wait, what? Wow. Let's take a look at this. Wonder what he saw. So first thing he saw that, he's probably thinking here, you know, one of the sections of the guide I talk about, the importance of like speed of the play. Like, in a way, that encapsulates Beifeng's mentality. He does things that the enemy won't expect because he doesn't hesitate. So in this situation, when Fiora Q's in, she's not expecting QIYANA to instantly turn around and ult. He just no hesitation goes. And there's a chance in which Fiora just doesn't react or just gets caught off guard. And he buys time in the grass queue quite effectively. And one other little thing to mention, take a look at this. Notice how he goes right to the edge of the stealth, and then when he gets the earth element, notice how he stays within the stealth, like he doesn't stand out of the stealth. So one thing you really want to, you know, it will take time, is that is knowing where you need to position inside of the stealth in order to not step out of it, because if you step out of it, you just go out of the stealth. So here, notice how he knows he didn't do it here, he didn't do it there, he did it there. So he only jumps a little bit when he grabs that element, which prevents Fiora from actually auto attacking QIYANA onto tower here, which allows him to survive just a little bit longer, which basically guarantees the kill. Which is just a nice little detail. I don't think it really made that much of a... It didn't make that much of a difference here, but it's these details that separate Beifeng and that pay dividends in other skirmishes where, you know, that one saved auto attack there, that F1 Formula 1 mindset changes the game completely. All right, so he gets dove here. His team makes a really good play on the other side of the map. Again, he has really obvious, I mean, he has 2 good win cons here. I mean, he has his Karthus, who's now rock and rolling, farming really well, 7 and 3. He has the Dragons, and to be honest, his bot lane Yuumi Pantheon is kind of smurfing it, so he has a lot of great win cons here. So ends up working towards bot here, tries to back up his team, adapt to the chaos. As you can see, not the most stock standard solo queue game. Tries to go in and back up his team, sits in the grass element, gets another one here. He's going to have to try and kite around. It's going to be very hard to escape. Flashes out. TP comes through. Here we go. Let's take a look at this. So kites around with grass Q excellently. As you can see, goes for a river stun, EQ, grass Q again. Beautiful kiting, man. This whole series of events, I mean, beautiful usage of grass Q here. Just really, really exceptional. Grass Q, kite around a little bit, get max value from it. And ideally, and one thing I probably should have mentioned in the guide here, notice how he stands in the grass queue for the maximum amount of duration. Like, he doesn't just flash now. He wants to juice the amount of stealth he gets from the grass queue such that he buys time for his W to come back off cooldown so he can instantly get another one, or at least as fast as he possibly can. So he kites around a little bit, buys time, goes for a river stun out of stealth that they can't really react, and then his team is able to collapse. And it's this sort of stuff, again, it's the same stuff that we've covered in the guide, guys. It's these things applied situationally that, you know, really allow him to shine in these skirmishes. And now it looks like his team is starting to run away with it. He has the secondary win con through this dragon that's about to spawn in a minute. Cleaning up on the back end, uses his prowlers to gap close. Beautiful with the team. Excellent. I'm assuming he's going to try and get to the objective early and set up. Here we go. Look at this. Ezreal's top, so it doesn't even look like they're going to be able to contest. Tries to go around the area here. Uses his grass queue to just chill. Create space. Looks like they're going to get the Ocean Soul uncontested. Beautiful. And same thing. He's shoving and moving. You know, tying into my example. Same thing. Shoving and moving. Look at this. Hovering out of vision. Shove, move, shove, hover, shove, move. Now, I don't know what the hell is happening topside. It looks like the enemy's actually starting Baron. So he sees it. Ah, look at this. So he gets caught off guard. Then he realizes that they're doing it, pans his camera, sees that it's so low that he can't make it anyway, and then decides to walk over to the Fiora to prevent Fiora from actually attending the fight. This has nothing to do with Fiora. This is more just game sense. He's trying to prevent Fiora from getting to the fight, be really annoying, prevent the TP. Yeah, that's what he's trying to do here. Wouldn't surprise me if he ease up there, tries to find him. Yeah, okay. Really, really good situational awareness there from Beifeng. All right, resets, comes back, working towards his Surrealdas here. Again, trying to get into a nice little sneaky position, just like I did in my games as well. Tries to look for a pick, using his grass cube very effectively here. I don't know how the hell he's going to get out of this one. He did what I did. The camera flick. The no look. So look, again, literally identical. Same place. I get caught out. It's very common today. Trying to push your limits to get yourself in a really good position with that tempo. Gets caught out. Tries to escape using grass cube. They weed him out, and unfortunately, he's not able to get anything done here. So this is what I would call a good death. Again, he's not dying because he's autopiloting or he's just in a really bad position, like straight front to back scenario. You know, he's trying to be creative to get into a position to get onto the back line here. So he goes top here. Oof. Grass Q, takes Grass Q again. What does he do here? So he sees Yone in the side lane. His ultimate's not up. It's up in 10 seconds. This is also seeing the consequences of wasting R. Let's look at this one more time. So it looks like he EQ Prowlers, or is he Q Prowlers E? So Q, W, Prowlers, auto, EQ again, sits in the grass Q. His grass is going to come back up in a second. Doesn't flash out, instead conserves his flash, maybe because he thinks it's too important. Maybe he could have flashed out of this Diana Q. It would have been really hard. So ends up dying here. Very, very close. If he had ultimate, that would have been completely free. I'm very intrigued because Yone actually went Negatron Cloak, which is fascinating. Okay. So it comes back. Elder's up in a minute, trying to get to the objective early. Chilling with the team right now. Yone splitting one side. Fiora's splitting the other. Elder's up in 25 seconds. He's trying to get to the objective early to set up, just like we were mentioning in the guide again. Sits around the brush. Here we go. It'll be interesting to see how he plays that. Oh, that's beautiful. Actually, to be honest, I thought that he would actually kill the Janna here. I don't really care about the Fiora. I thought killing the Janna would have been the smart way because you can't one-shot the Fiora here. So gets Grass Q again. Gets Grass Q again. Sitting off to the side. Trying to create space. To be honest with you, I'm a little unimpressed with the way he played this fight. I think he kind of rushed this ultimate. I would have also liked to see more. I probably would have liked to see him over here by the looks of things. How could he have played this differently? Okay, so he knows they're coming from that angle. Sees the Fiora. Sees Ezreal coming from the top side. It's too late. He has to commit now. Sees that. He thought Janna was committing more to the river, so he ends up wasting it. Has to use Grass Q defensively to escape a little bit. Tries to reposition. Diana comes over. He has no other way, so he tries to reposition and go over here. What I thought he was going to do here was... I thought he was going to go straight onto the Ezreal, like EQ onto the Ezreal here, and just sit in Grass Q again. So grab this grass, and then flash EQ, and then just prevent Ezreal from free DPSing your team. But he probably thought the fight was won anyway, because they'd already killed Yone, that there's no need. So he plays it much more conservative and tried to peel and kill that Diana, but looks like the fight is won at this point anyway. And then they clean up. Looks like they got the Elder. They get the Baron, and it's a pretty free win from here. So... as you can see, I mean, look, this is the best QIYANA in the world, definitively. To be honest with you, he wasn't really that impactful, was he? These games happen. This is a hard, bloody game. Sometimes you are purely, I wouldn't say a facilitator, but you're kind of just a secondary carry. And getting your head around that, you're not going to be the carry. QIYANA's not just this 1v9 Cassiopeia carry, no. We all see the games on the highlights where he gets 11-0. Yes, those happen. But this is more realistic to what a game would usually look like. So I really love this VOD. I think it encapsulates a lot in the guide and also, contrasts very nicely with the VODs that I covered as well. So really, really great stuff. Love to hear your thoughts, guys. Now for the community Q&A. So I've selected a few questions here. There's not too many because I feel as though I covered most of the questions or answered most of the questions from the guide itself or the VODs that I reviewed on the back end of the guide. So I picked a few. The first one here is from Illusions, by the looks of things. How to not fall off after getting fed from kills in lane. Look, this is a very general question, and where I would start if I felt as though I was getting ahead in a game, was I would start with my identification of secondary win conditions, and I would start with my assessment of my role in the game. So some, like I've said in this guide, some games with QIYANA, you are going to have a very easy game in the sense that you've got plenty of AP on your team. You have maybe like an Evelyn, and you have like a strong AP support or a strong AP top lane, like a Mordekaiser or Evelyn. You might even have these games where you've got an AP carry bot lane and an AP jungle, and you're versing squishies, and it's a relatively clean game where you're going to get kills and you don't really need to do anything crazy to win the game. Then you're going to get the games that I reviewed just before with Beifeng and Doinby, that one where they verse each other, the QIYANA v Yone. And that was a very difficult game. I think he was like 2-0 in that game or something like that, and he was basically useless. Not useless, but he wasn't really that impactful. In which he made decisions that kind of just complemented his team in a way. So what I would recommend, man, is go to your LoL. I would start with your LoL state usage. So go to your LoL states, resets, coming out of base, in between waves, and start to come up with hypotheses about how are you going to win this game, right? How are you going to do it? Are you going to do it through playing through your bot lane, complementing your bot lane? Could you chill and relax and just dominate your opponent? Do you want to call for objectives and start pushing the pace of the game through objectives? Or do you feel as though, the game is so bloody chaotic, and make a play like Beifeng where he just ditches the wave and tries to trade 1-for-1 with the Rift Herald? Do you need to go for some really crazy chaotic plays because you just get outscaled so hard? So this really comes down to LoL state usage, it comes to your win con assessment, and it really comes down to just, look, this is a skill that you need to develop within itself. It's really hard for me to really give you a specific answer without seeing the specifics in that game. So I would look at your translational leads, your roaming, tempo resets, camera panning, all these things that I covered in the guide. And don't just be content with getting a few kills and being like, oh, I'm fucking Beifeng and I deserve to win this game. No. The way I view it is that you should be 2-0 basically every game. So being 2-0 as QIYANA is the equivalent of being 0-0 as like a Victor or an Orianna in a way. Even though it's a pretty scuffed analogy, but it's the way I view it. It's like, it's no shit you're gonna get your solo kill, right? So what are you gonna do with it? A lot of the time it comes down to ego. A lot of people get 2-0 and they have a hissy fit and be like, well, my teammate sucks, we still lost the game. No. Did you have a hypothesis about secondary win conditions? Did you use your LoL states? Did you have a hypothesis? They're the areas that I would look for, man. This next one from Jaeho Jung. What can you do as QIYANA when your opponent plays super safe in lane and you don't have a lot of kills as you head over to the mid game? Well, to be honest, my VOD review versus Xerath was a pretty good example of that. I mean, the Xerath that I versed played really conservatively. I couldn't really deny him that farm. He was just kind of farming up a storm. But he gave me free farm. And when QIYANA gets, 9 CS per minute, nearly 10 CS per minute, QIYANA really does turn into a pretty hardcore carry. So if my opponent is playing super safe and conservatively, maybe they're playing like a Xerath or a Twisted Fate or whatever it might be, and they're chilling, then I would look at a few areas. I would look at calling objectives, maybe. I could call for objectives with my prio. I would look for creative roams into the enemy jungle with my prio to get something done. Maybe pick the jungle off like I covered in the guide. I might even look for and start panning my camera to my side lanes and my secondary win condition, see if I can get something happening in a side lane. And if all else fails and still you can't dive aside, you can't really get a play, and you're just exerting pressure, continue to farm 10 CS per minute. Once you get to your 1-2 item spike, you'll notice that skirmishes are going to be a lot more occur a lot more, and as you started to get into the mid game, you play the side lane just like I did and start to push and move and get flanks. So I would refer back to that QIYANA v Xerath game that I reviewed in the guide. Next one here, basically the same question. The first one from Fat Thor Incarnate and Georgie Tatarashvili. Sorry if I'm butchering that, Georgie. So basically, it's how do I play from behind? And the other one here says how to stay ahead or not fall behind after a good starts. And this guy says, as in the enemy is closing in on your base. But look, to be honest, I'm not really going to answer the second part of this because if you're ever kind of getting shoved into your base, it's kind of end of review as QIYANA because you don't have any access to your elements. You only have an Earth Q and it turns into a bit of a shit show. But overall, as a concept of playing from behind as QIYANA, look, first things first, look, I wouldn't even look at playing from behind until you're 60, 70 games in. It's just no point because, like I said, the first 8 minutes of every game with QIYANA is the most important thing. The way you start, like your levels 1 to 3, your pre-first base, your post-first base, your levels 1 to 6, what you do with like that level 6 to 8, that whole section there is everything. If you fuck up there and you don't have a reliable lane phase, you don't understand your matchup, and you're not getting poor quality resets, whatever it might be, I don't give a shit about you coming from behind. So, but let's just say you've played 70 games of QIYANA, you're pretty comfortable with your laning phase, etc. Or at least you're comfortable with that from this guide. That game where I versed the Scion, the QIYANA v Scion game, that's a perfect example of playing from behind. What I'll do, I'll try to identify a moment where I can come in from the side. I'll go for a reset, try and shove aside and move, make some form of creative pick somewhere, or go for an inefficient recall like Doinby did. Like Beifeng did into Doinby, and then look for a roam play, that sort of thing. So you want to look for those creative plays. But in the situation where you have a lot of AP on your team, you don't really need to do that. Just keep farming. Keep farming, give pressure, keep farming, kind of like what Beifeng did in that game where he wasn't the main win con. He was behind, but his Karthus was getting ahead. His Pantheon Yuumi was getting ahead. He just had to stay relatively farmed and not get too far behind the curve, where he was just getting played spot lane, farming, getting to his 2 items, which he can actually do something later on. So between the Beifeng VOD and my VOD versus Scion, I think you're going to get a pretty good idea about what you should be looking for when you play. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you learned something, or even if it's one thing you can take away from the guide, that would make me really happy. I'd love to hear your comments, thoughts, if you found it helpful, things like that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys around the comment section. Enjoy.